I'd like to call this meeting of the West Sussex Milwaukee School District to order. Ms. Lee, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Suzette, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Burns.
Present.
Mr. Becker.
Here.
Mrs. Kaiser. Here. Mr. Keller.
Here.
Ms. Steele. Here. Mrs. Carr. Here. Mrs. Lee. Here. Mr. Sikich is on Zoom.
Present.
Notice that this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do you have any modifications to the agenda this evening?
No modifications.
All right, then we'll move right into the superintendent's report.
Good evening. We have several updates on tonight. Start off with legislative update. Senate Bill 395 school revenue ceiling under current law. Per pupil revenue ceiling is $11,000 in 23-24 school year and each school year thereafter. Current law also provides that during the 3 school years following a school year in which an operating referendum fails in a school district, the school district revenue ceiling is the revenue ceiling that applied in the school year during which the referendum was held. The bill eliminates the provision under which a school district revenue ceiling is the revenue ceiling from a previous school year because of an operating referendum failed in the district. Senate Bill 83, posting accrued interest estimates on the ballot. Specifically, this particular bill is going to require language that could be visible to those who are voting for or against a referendum, specifically stating the interest that will be accrued with the bonds that will be collected if the referendum is successful. That's the specific language that's being added to Senate Bill 83, proposed for Senate Bill 83. DPI releases figures on 23-24 general school aids. The DPI posted state general school aids that school districts will receive during the current school year. The information published includes certified general school aid amounts for each district, as well as the 23-24 school student enrollment numbers for independent charter schools and private schools participating in state parental choice programs. The enrollment numbers are used to determine the dollar amounts to be deducted or withheld from school districts' aid payments to fund state parental choice programs. I believe we're going to talk about some of that tonight in our when we talk about budget as well. So we'll kind of lead into that. Also, DPI releases Wisconsin Student Assessment System results. On October 10th, DPI released the 22-23 school year results of the Wisconsin Student Assessment System. The data shows the highest level of achievement since the 18-19 school year statewide. To access 22-23 Wisconsin school data, visit DPI's WISE-public portal. And we will be doing a formal presentation during the month of November to discuss our district's results concerning last year's board exam. Our district recognitions. Congratulations to the entire Nathan Hale school community as they have once again been recognized by U.S. News and World Report on their best high schools list for the 5th year in a row. Of the 574 high schools statewide and 25,000 reviewed nationally, Nathan Hale ranked number 233 in the state and 7,725th nationally. By earning a ranking in the top 40 in the state, 30% in the nation, Nathan Hale achieved the status as a U.S. News Best High School for 23. According to U.S. News, public high schools are ranked on a number of criteria, including college readiness, math, reading, science proficiency and performance, college curriculum, AP results, and graduation rate. So I want to send a shout out to Mr. Lesser and his staff, students, and the community of Hale. District updates, some of the things that visits and meetings as far as and also 90-day plan activities since our last meeting. October 10th, I enjoyed attending the Bring Your Family to School Day at Jefferson Elementary. There were 3 different sessions where parents were encouraged to attend. It was an excellent turnout. I had the opportunity to attend session 2 between the hour of 9:30 and 10:30. But a great turnout for all 3 periods for that particular event. Also, special shout out to Sodexo for providing food service for that event. And then we also did have an expectations meeting with Sodexo that was separate of that particular meeting, but on that particular day, I had a busy day that day. So we discussed how we can improve the services that they're providing and how we can kind of turn it up a bit and making sure that we have the quality of service that our students and our parents expect from food services. October 13th, Dr. Stewart and I had the pleasure of attending the West Allis Women's Club meeting at Mount Hope Lutheran Church. When I tell you I had a great time, I had a great time. I was only there for 10 minutes, but it was 10 minutes of action-packed, moving around, laughing, and just really allowing the ladies to get to know me in a different light, but also engaging. I ran into another person on Thursday who said I was there. So the connection is being felt from one event to the next event. So that was great to see. October 17th, Alyssa Barrage, Amanda, and I met with Melissa Matarazzo from Huron Consulting Group. And we really discussed the findings of our listening and learning sessions and how they're going so far and any suggestions that we could use to improve. One of the things that I want to give Dr. Stewart a shout out is that qualitative data that's being collected during our discussion. She's doing a great job of really taking notes on that. So we were able to look at the themes and come up with some quick solutions and then just try to see where the trends are for our feedback. Also, she did give us some responses on our employment engagement and parent caregiver experience surveys. The amount of surveys submissions are up, and we'll discuss at our next board meeting some of the findings that we have from that. But it's good to know that our responses are definitely up from last year, clear a 5% increase in the amount of responses. Okay. October 19th, Aaron Norris and I did attend the West Allis Lions Club meeting, and that's where I saw that particular person who was at the women's club. I was encouraged as well as a district to partner with Lions Club, and so Mr. Lemke, the vice president of Lions Club, actually called me today, and we're going to have some coffee and just kind of get to know each other. He encouraged me and challenged me on the spot, and I appreciated that. And about how we can best partner and improve what we're doing currently. And I took it as a personal challenge, and I said publicly, "Are you inviting me to join?" And he said, "Absolutely." And so I joined, and I'm just waiting approval from the group to join the Lions Club. Our listening and learning sessions will wrap up this week. So we are at the finish line. However, we want to continue the dialogue that we've started. We don't want this to be the end. So if we have any follow-up meetings, we will definitely try to schedule those. But Jefferson on tomorrow, DLVA will be held at Madison on the 25th and Horace Mann on the 26th. So I want to go into quickly some FastBridge data results and just a kind of update on our background on FastBridge. FastBridge is given 3 times a year. So it's a fall, winter, and then a summer submission or testing window. And we just finished the fall submission. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of go to that particular data and kind of talk through that quickly. And I just want to kind of show some trends that we have. So, and I realize this can be difficult to read, but in a nutshell, the 2 columns on the left, you want those numbers to be generally higher than the 2 on the right. Okay. That's the easiest way I can sum it up. You want more kids scoring in percentage of college pathway than you do at percentage of high risk. So as you can see, comparing to spring 23 to fall 23, we do have some, what I would say, dips, which are expected because when you're talking about students going from one grade level to another grade level, you generally will have dips. However, you want to see your apples and apples looking the same. Okay, so the side-by-side data should be a little closer where you see the red highlighted or pinkish color. It should be closer. A dip is not bad because you are comparing 2 different sets of kids. Okay, But in this particular case, if you look at, so our current first graders, I'll start there. College pathway, percentage college pathway is 20% for spring 23. So those first graders this year are scoring at fall 23 for 15% for first graders. So that's a different cohort, but that's where that dip is at 5% for first grade, and that's district wide. Compared to the other end, if you look at percentage of high risk, we had 27%, and we have 37% for the fall. So a couple of things that come to mind when you're looking at scores like this. One thing I can honestly tell you, the fall scores are always on the lower end than the middle of the year and the end of the year. They are, okay? Because we have teachers who are trying to cover gaps. We have students who are trying to get adjusted. And then you also have situation of, are we taking it seriously? Are we really understanding what we're doing? And so I think as a culture with the district, we are really trying to create some better systems around this to make sure that everybody understands how serious this is and how we are able to really get a logical benchmark to set and then to show some improvement for MOI, which will be our winter scores. I'll also tell you that in the upcoming meetings for our principals and leadership, we will be working on progress monitoring, because progress monitoring is where you'll see the increases from the fall to the winter. So if I were a parent, I would ask me, the superintendent, well, how are you planning to improve our scores from one to the next? Progress monitoring is where it's done. Progress monitoring involves teachers looking at their group of students, knowing where in one of these 4 groups their students fall, and creating an individual plan, not only for those students, but also the group that they fall in, to work on increasing their scores. But the first thing we have to understand, though, is where are each kid scoring right now? Because that's the mark. If we don't understand the mark, we're never going to improve, or we're not improving strategically. So to strategically improve, we're going to look at our benchmarks. The students should be able to tell us where they are. And if they don't have any idea where they are, they're not knowing if they're improving. And then working strategically over a 3-week process to do progress monitoring. And progress monitoring is simply working on skills in small groups. It could be using technology, but most importantly, guys, you get more bang for your buck in progress monitoring when the teacher is able to work with students on skills. And so we're really pushing small group instruction time for that progress monitoring time as well. Okay. Less technology. Technology is good, but technology is just one resource. It shouldn't be the end all of our supports, and it shouldn't be the end all of our supports. I'll pause. Does anybody have any questions about this?
As a teacher who was looking at her map data today, creating SMART goals, could you share this with us? Or possible, because I would love to see the data.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Thank you.
Other questions?
I knew you had a question. Well, I was going to call on you. Go ahead.
Well, and I'm thinking Corey might be able to answer. So I just really out of super curiosity, the map versus FastBridge. Which one is easier to implement to as far as the teachers go, like I remember that map took a lot of time and until the kids really knew the system. And tell me a little bit about the implementation of FastBridge.
Yeah, so FastBridge, we're in our 3rd year of implementation. And I think that by the time we got to the point we were using FastBridge, a lot of teachers were like, well, how can I find this information? Like I knew how to find a map. So we're still learning that piece of using it with Fidelity. The nice thing about FastBridge is you have the screener 3 times a year. But then within the same suite, so map was the screener and that was it. With FastBridge, we have the actual screener, but then built within the suite is lesson plans based on what their tests are telling us, what skills they need to work on. But then the progress monitoring assessments are built right in. So you can go, oh, the FastBridge assessment says they need to work on this skill. awesome. So this is the progress monitoring tool to use. So it's all built in one place, and then it all reports into one place for the teachers to go in and access.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
And that's a great question, because programs that I'm familiar with, having them in isolation.
Yep.
And so then you're having to go out and purchase another program for progress monitoring.
Are you
For
pulling
assistance. This is a
Yeah. Yeah.
one-time thing. But again, it's all trying to build that urgency though around and the importance of why these types of assessments are important. Because even if we're looking at you know, the various groups of students and levels that we have students who should be scoring higher, but they're not scoring higher. So where is that disconnect? Is it a situation of, was the testing environment right? Were they taking it serious? I mean, all these kind of things come to mind, because if I'm a parent and I'm wondering, why is my kid not scoring here? You know, that may be the situation, but it also may be another, on the other hand, could be whether we're creating the type of urgency as a district to really communicate the importance of this particular assessment, because we have to do a better job of using data to drive our instruction. And that's what this tool does. This new tool allows you to do that. It allows you to build small groups. I mean, it creates the data, it shoots it out to you. Your small groups are already made. So that takes the hard job out of it. Now, what are you doing with these kids when you get them in small groups? And then, so looking at the various levels, you have the higher scoring kids you're working with, you have the lower scoring kids, but everybody's getting some type of intervention. An intervention for the higher will be more enrichment. We'll be stretching it a little bit. So it could look a little different, but that's some of the things we have to work on next with leadership to make sure that we are, we're definitely communicating. But giving the opportunities to model how that looks is very important to our leadership, that they need that.
Mr. Burnson.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
With our fast bridge, is there a way to integrate where the kids are scoring in the classroom versus their test? And I asked this from the point of view of, I was the test taker that did AC/DC down my Scantron. Because I didn't care about the tests. They had an impact on me specifically. So are we able to look at like the metric, how far away they are from what their classroom teacher says they are versus what this test says they are? Because then what we're going to look at to do for them may be different. And I don't know that selling the test to them is the thing that needs to be done, but more of finding a different way to report or a different way to engage them in the short term for smaller bits of it. And that fast bridge is part of other assessment kinds of things rather than a full on test, because as that stands, they're just not caring.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, so the passport, the screener, the A reading and A math screener are exactly something that someone could go see. The nice thing about the progress monitoring test, some of them are computer based, but some of them are one-on-one, the teacher and the student working together. So, and the progress monitoring assessments are literally just working on one skill. So if I'm working with a student who the A reading is like, oh, they're scoring, they're high risk, we need to do a bunch of intervention. But now I either go back to what I'm doing with our Scholastic core resource or this progress monitoring tool where I work, okay, let's see what you can do with this specific skill. And they're like, oh, yeah, you got it. And we're conferring. Like, that's why our teachers confer and do that individualized goal setting, because we know that each data point is only one data point, and it is completely necessary to look at the whole child and all of the data you have available to you.
I think often we look at different sets of data, we do not see the correlation that we want. Grades will tend to be inflated, just being honest with you, because humans are scoring it. And then you have test scores that come out that say a different thing. We want to see more of a correlation. And tests like FastBridge or assessments like FastBridge, I don't like using the word test, assessments like FastBridge will also, you can look at the time that a kid spends on an assessment. If a kid, just being honest with you, I was over in middle school at one point, and we looking at the scores, and we're wondering why the score is so bad. We have kids who are spending 3 minutes on a 30-question assessment. Yeah, no wonder he didn't get good. So that's something. But if you look at the data, it was back up there. The middle school students actually score a little better than elementary. So it's kind of looking at, look at your there's more. It's even across the board pretty much. And if you look at there's bigger decreases in the right. That's opposite of what I would expect, because 6th, 7th, 8th graders tying them down and saying you got to do an assessment. They're moving. You guys know how middle schools are. That's kind of a surprise, but that's actually an encouraging piece of data. The discouraging piece of data is at our foundational levels. We have to do a little bit more to get those kids up and to close gaps there. So that's just a quick look at some of the data. I think you bring up a great question.
So then, of course, after winter assessment, you'll report back.
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm curious now. I'm
No,
really hoping that we
no,
see.
you every time we do one of these assessments, you'll get the reports back. And the report that we receive next time, we want to see again. We want the first 2 columns, we want to see higher numbers. We want to see lower numbers in the right 2. But that's why we really have to focus on what our progress monitoring looks like. And as leadership, what does it look like in your building, and not trying to micromanage it, but are you aware of where students are scoring? That's like the start, right? And then how are you working with teachers to make sure that they're working on the right things for skills? So this is a conversation that we're crafting for the next principals meeting, and then we'll go a little bit more in depth with our district leadership the next week. So progress monitoring is huge, and we expect jumps. If you're focusing on skills consistently, you expect that those kids to improve. Bottom line. And so I am as well. Just as much as I know you are as well. So accountability is all over here. We're good.
My only concern with this is that if you have someone who isn't taking the test seriously and they're put into these groups that are designed to address skills that they don't really need to have addressed, they're going to be bored. And then they need to be, because they're below level where they actually are because they didn't take the test seriously. And then how do we get them to take the test seriously the next time they take it? So in order to see the growth, there has to be some sort of understanding from the student's perspective that I need to try my best at this, not just get done as soon as I can because I don't like taking tests. So how do we address that? And what plan do we have to ensure? Because I did, my daughter and son both took Fastbridge. And we did receive some communication from the school stating that, like, hey, this, testing is coming up. Make sure your kids well rested, make sure they had, good breakfast, that sort of thing before they come to school. But what are we doing within the classrooms with students? Because at the end of the day, the parents can do whatever. They can make sure they got the sleep, to make sure they were fed, and make sure that, hey, do your best on the test. But if the kid doesn't want to do it, he's not going to do it. The parent is sitting there watching them take that test. So how do we, what sort of strategies are we going to have within the classroom to say, hey, this is really important that you do your best? And can we have competitions? Can we have rewards, something where, hey, you moved from here to here. You did you really moved your score, and those kids who move that score, they can, get something. I'm just trying to think of a way to motivate elementary students.
In my class, we talk about a lot of, you're going to show off now all this learning you've done, that you've worked so hard over the last 3 months. We're going to show off. If as a group we go up so many points, we do an ice cream party. And I do it as a community thing because we all want to bring each other up. That's something I do in my class, but also we talk about being a good test taker. And there are teachers who do this all the time that, we need to know what you know so we can help you. And if you're not taking the test seriously, then I can't help you. And I personally have seen it been a positive for my students, especially when you get to the January test, the May test. When it's May, they're just tired. In January is your really key time to really see where they are. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Dr.
So just to respond to your question, I don't have any evidence that they didn't take it serious. That was just me making an assumption. Okay.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that as a district, we have to create a sense of urgency and importance around these particular assessments. And that's what we'll be working on going forward. I can't talk about, I don't know how it was viewed in the past. I just know how it's gonna be viewed from this particular point on. And starting with doing presentations like tonight for the public, I'm pretty sure there are people that are seeing this right now saying, okay, we gotta start doing better on this test.
Mhm.
So that's one thing, but also the incentives
Mhm.
definitely work. And that kind of is a school by school
Right.
thing, because you have to look at percentages within that particular building, but of course it is about building that culture of accountability within that particular exam. So that's something we are definitely working on.
Okay.
And as we wrap up our this week again, we have listening and learning sessions at Jefferson, DLVA, which will be hosted at Madison and then Horace Mann Elementary on this coming week. So we look forward to seeing the community coming out and being a part of those conversations. And at this particular time, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to item 7, public comments. So if there's anyone here or anyone in Zoom who would like to address the board, you have 3 minutes to do so. You must start by stating your name and your address. There will be no back and forth conversation, but if there's any simple questions or comments that can be addressed at that time, they will be done so. Otherwise, if there's any formal response required, it'll be done by the next regular Board of Education meeting. Let's see, if you are on Zoom, there should be a link in the chat in order to be able to sign up for doing public comments. Currently, we have no one signed up. So I'll wait for 15 seconds in case someone joined late, would like to run over or run or click on the link to be able to sign up to address the board. All right, seeing no one sign up, I'm going to close public comments at this time. Move on to item 8, board reports, starting with 8.1, a review of our board calendar. So tonight is October 23rd. We have a regular Board of Education meeting, which includes our final budget and tax levy. Then we have a financial stability and efficiency referendum 2024 workshop number 2. And immediately following, we have a closed session meeting. On Monday, November 13th at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting, and then a college career readiness workshop on the state statute 118.33, parent 1, parent E. Then on Monday, November 20th at 6 p.m., we have a college and career readiness workshop on our state school report cards for the 22-23 school year. And then on Monday, November 27th at 6 p.m., we have a regular Board of Education meeting, and then a financial stability and efficiency workshop, the 23-24 technology department update, facilities and grounds overview, and update on the long range facilities master's plan. Moving on to 8.2, our board committee reports, starting with 8.2.1, employee engagement and culture. Mr. Keller.
All right, thank you. So we met last week, Tuesday, the 17th. One of the first things we talked about was our substitution fill rate. So we went over some data from September 1st through October 15th. We do have 56 active substitutes within the district. We went a little bit over the data in terms of what those needs for subs look like by day, Friday being the highest need so far this year. We talked about what the reasons for the absences were. A lot of them were employee or family illness, with FMLA and then personal leave being the next 2. We also talked a bit about the unfilled absences per school and what that looked like. And we talked a little bit about trying to get some additional data and getting a survey of subs in terms of, what their preference was for schools or what might prevent them from accepting different substitute openings or whatever the case might be. We talked a little bit about our vacancy report as well. That continues to trend down. We do still have a few positions open that we are working on to get completed. We also had an update on our recruiter position. The job description's been finalized and it's posted on Wecan and Better Teams. It's also going to be posted on the Milwaukee SHRM chapter. And then we talked a little bit about a list of community, nonprofit, and professional organizations that we can tap into for recruitment. And that was it.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Keller. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Keller regarding his report? I have one. Regarding the sub, we last year increased our our substitute position pay to hopefully be able to increase that fill rate. Have we looked at year over year rates to see if we are seeing increase in that fill rate due to the increased salary that we, or the increased rates that we had approved? And are we looking at, since we increased that rate, has other school districts also increased their rates? So we're back where we were as far as comparatives when it comes to how much we're paying.
Yeah, I'll have to confirm that. I feel like we talked about that just in passing, and it was somewhat similar to the previous year, but I'll take that back to committee and make sure we get updated data.
Okay. Any other topics for Mr. Keller's committee to consider at his next meeting of the thing I just brought up? Mr. Sigich on there. No, he is not waving his hand. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Keller. Moving on to 8.2.2, financial stability and efficiency. Ms. Kaiser.
All right, thank you. The Financial Stability and Efficiency Committee met last Monday, October 16th, 2023. We reviewed the 23-24 final budget adoption presentation. And as you'll hear tonight, statewide public school budgets increased by 2.47%, while private schools received a 23.21% budget increase. The state provided budgets were finalized October 13th, 2023. We are adopting a new eye insurance, which will save employees money and give them a better benefit. We discussed upcoming transportation and crossing guard contracts, more on that publicly to come at a later date. And we tabled a discussion about membership in the Wisconsin Public Education Network until the next meeting next month. That's all I have. You'll see the presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Kaiser. Anyone have any questions for Ms. Kaiser regarding her report? Or any items for future consideration for her committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Ms. Kaiser, for your report. Moving on to 8.2.3, Recreation and Community Service, Mr. Becker.
Thank you. The Recreation Committee met last week on the 16th. We had a brief discussion on the construction updates over at the rec center. If you've been over near 68th, you may have seen that the construction fencing is up. You've got some heavy machines over there starting to build out the 2 new multi-purpose rooms. We spoke about the council vote, which was on the 17th and passed, not to get too far out of my lane, but we also had a conversation on kind of the expectations, the roles and priorities for district athletics. This was a conversation that came out of, there were different organizations vying for gym space and really trying to understand what's a reasonable expectation for how much gym space a team could have on different levels, like which sorts of organizations might warrant use of a full gym versus half the gym, sharing the gym. And that led us down the road of talking about our strategic plan. This is something we'd spoken about a few months ago, if you may recall, trying to put together a document where we can a little bit more strategically and with a little more regularity provide guidance and just guidelines for people, basically, as opposed to taking a case-by-case basis. That's about all we had.
All right. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Becker's report? Or any items to be considered at future meetings? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Becker. I'll move on to 8.3, board member reports, community events, and events board members attend they would like to report on. Ms. Kaiser.
Frank Lloyd Wright had their showcase last week, and granted, I was there for my own child and stuff, but I wanted to shout out the young, 2 young men, 2 young women who were at the door, greeted every single person and says, "How can I show you to your classroom? Can I help you?" And it was really a nice way to help like the Lane families that came in. And I also got a kick out of, as I'm walking up there with the 7th and 8th grade kids, they're going, does your child come to our school? Have they been here since sixth grade? How are they doing? And it was such a sweet way to enter the building and really felt community because Mr. Fish was right there. These kids were obviously being taking leadership roles. And I thought it was such a wonderful way to build community at Frank Lloyd Wright, along with all the amazing work they're doing there. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much for that report. Anyone else attend any events like the report on? Ms. Steele?
First of all, I just wanted to thank all the families. I've been to a couple, I think 4 or 5 listening events, listening and learning sessions. So thank you to everyone that continues to come to those. But I just wanted to mention Hale. I went to the Hale music concert on October 11th. It was phenomenal. I mean, I'm embracing the new role as band mom. Living vicariously through my children because I never played an instrument, but it was so great. And at the end, they did Tusk, and it involved everyone. So they had the orchestra, the band, and I mean, it was like surround sound. I mean, I was in tears. It was all, it was great. I think the Nathan Hale Friends of Music put up actually a video of it if you want to check it out. It was really good. But I also just wanted to mention what Joe said. So Noah and I were actually at the Common Council meeting on Tuesday. I just want to say thanks to Alderperson Haas, who was the one who basically supported it for, whatever they actually sponsored it. Thank you. And it was just really nice. It was just really positive things nobody said anything for public comments. But afterwards, we just got some really positive stuff from the Common Council. So I'm just really excited to see, as someone who lives on the west end of West Allis, I'm excited to see us, start building that West Rec Center. I think it will be a real asset to the community. So thanks to Shelley and her team for all of their work and working with the council on that.
Thank you, Ms. Steele. Anyone else have any events that they attended they would like to report back on? Okay, as always, going last, I went to some of the things people already talked about, listening learning sessions. I was not able to attend the Hale event because of listening learning session. The Common Council meeting was good. I mean, I think that Shelley and her team did a good job of kind of laying out why it was so important that basically everyone was in favor of it. And they actually see this as a catalyst to really start the project they want on Highway 100, which is to make it more of a destination location for people to go to. And so the vast majority of the Common Council members were very much in favor of the change and looking forward to see the progress that we make over there. And then the next steps as we move forward with the demolition and then the splitting of the property to sell to hopefully for coming back to coming back on the tax rolls. So it'll be good. And now that the zoning is done, then we can just move forward with our plans. So looking forward to see that happen and as another amenity for our community as a whole. Okay, with that, we have 8.4 other updates and information items. I just again want to encourage the Jefferson, DLVA, and Horace Mann communities to come out to those learning sessions that are this week. Unfortunately, I'll be late for the Jefferson one or may not be able to attend because of my son's Junior Huskies banquet that's on the same night. I will come if I can. I'll be at DLVA and then I will not be able to attend the Horace Mann one, but I do encourage board members that can come to please come. I think they're very useful to hear what people are saying, to be able to get those themes. And I think it also will help with the referendum discussion as well. So I think that that's a very important thing to consider. It's worthwhile for an hour and a half of your time. And it is an opportunity to be able to speak with some people on a personal level about questions, comments, and concerns. And I think that's always a good opportunity for us as a whole. So please do attend if you are able. All right, with that, we'll move on to our consent agenda this evening. Starting with 9.1, approval of minutes from our regular Board of Education meeting on October 9th and our board workshop from October 16th. 9.2, the employment summary. 9.3, the supplementary contracts. And 9.4, our financial summary. Does anyone need anything separated out? If not, I would look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Just a thumb up. Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much. And move on to our action item this evening, starting with 10.1, the 23-24 final budget and tax levy adoption. Mr. Norris.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for having me back again on the budget. This is a long road, but this is the conclusion of the road, so it's always usually a hopeful meeting to discuss and kind of finalize one chapter and then start working on next year's budget, which starts relatively quickly. So thank you again. I want to start tonight just with a question that has no answer. And the question I'd ask of each of you to consider is, what is your expectation of the school district's budget as a leader, as a community member, and as a parent, either current or former of a student? Because I think as I thought about this for a few weeks, maybe a few months now, I think to look out, you have to look in.
Mhm.
And I think as leaders of the organization, certainly of the community, in your capacity, your position on where we go as a district while having bearings to the community is something that you should be grounded in and think about as we go through budget cycles, as we always do. So I'd ask you to consider that tonight as we go through the presentation, because there's things that we'll talk about tonight that the district, the board, the community has little control over that the state does. And so those impacts certainly have impacts in the community, certainly have impacts in district priorities and things like that too. So just something to consider as we go through the presentation tonight. So the agenda, expectations, district highlights, we'll talk through the state budget that was adopted by the state for the next 2 years. What happens on what's called the 15th DPI certification, as Dr. Robinson mentioned, that actually happened the 13th this year because that fell on a weekend. The changes from the prelim budget to today, which happened on early September, and then the development of the tax levy to really go through again and educate like how these numbers get calculated by the state to literally follow the calculations the state has. So we'll go through that, which includes revenue limit, equalization aid, equalized property value, and then the private voucher comparison. We'll conclude that with how that impacts the all funds tax levy, and then jump into kind of our historical tax levy mill rate in comparison and overlay the tax levy with inflation to show the comparison of how those two have impacted over the past 10 years. And then we'll finish up with the mill rate piece, and then end with recommendations, options in the certification process will be a conclusion. So to jump through the district highlights for the year, certainly we have the reorganization of school consolidation. So closing 3 schools at the end of last year. Now we're working through what that looks like. That is certainly a district highlight this year. We have computer refreshes, secondary computer labs are all refreshed. Non-instructional staff were refreshed as well. That's part of the current technology plan, which is on this slide as well, because the technology committee is meeting every 3 years as a new technology plan that drives kind of what we focus on, and it's in sync with curriculum adoption. So on a heavier curriculum adoption year, you'll see a lesser technology purchase, and then vice versa in opposite years. So that committee is I think scheduled to meet this week with staff and then launch with parents and community members in subsequent weeks. The plan for that would be that the board would kind of have a workshop February, March with approval in April, May area. So that'll be coming forward soon. Certainly includes a CPI increase for all staff at 5% this year. Retention bonuses for all returning employees using ESSER funds. Future district office construction proceeding at 93rd Street. I believe the framing is done. So we're moving on schedule and on budget. That's the last report I got. So two good things to hear, right? And then I know, as Mr. Becker mentioned, community recreation piece. So the east side is working on a construction project. So we've been very involved with that, which is great. And then as Ms. Steele just mentioned, with the construction project potentially beginning here at the west side recreation center at Lane, that'll begin soon. And then finally, just continue progress with our OPEB plan, which the board approved last year. So that plan's working well. It's just a few highlights to mention. So I guess to look back as a quick preview to look forward here, on July 5th, the Governor Evers signed into law the 23-25 biennial budget, better known as Act 19, onto the state legislature. It included the following for public school districts. So I'm going to focus on 2 entities, public and private, because it is the story I believe that many school districts are going to be telling tonight on the impact of one piece of legislation and the impact it has on both the school district and the community. And I want to focus on what schools, K-12 public schools receive versus private schools. So public schools receive $325 per pupil. And you can see I provided an approximate math calculation for you to see. Our district received approximately $2.3 million in additional revenue for our Fund 10 budget. Our total revenue for the Fund 10 budget is $92 million. We received $0 in per pupil increases. our special education reimbursement expense went up from 30% to 33.3. So that was good to see. Certainly not the 60% the governor had asked for, but movement's movement. And the low revenue ceiling increased 11,000. I'll talk about the reason that the importance of that later in the presentation. So total revenue increase about 2.5%. The next slide here is the same. It's the same slide, but it's on private vouchers. And I want to talk about this again because the differences are staggering. So the same piece of legislation that was signed into law on July 5th for private schools increased all private schools an aggregate of 23.21%. And you can see the breakdown of the differences between a K-8, a 9 through 12, or a special education student. When you compare those two, 23.21% versus roughly 2.5%, I think staggering is the word I keep using because there's no way to catch up with that. On top of that, another piece of information that we've talked about with local districts is for a 9 through 12 student or a student that has an IEP, we actually receive less dollars than are owed. So the way that this works is schools receive the revenue for these students and then have the subsequent expense. So when you look at our revenue, we receive every dollar for every student who attends private voucher schools. And then we have a subsequent expense similar to open enrollment. So as our revenue increases, our burden on the community increases because the dollars have to come to the school district to be sent to these other agencies. So as I mentioned here, all increases for private vouchers come directly from the taxpayers. At the bottom, and there's little information on this today, but a lawsuit was filed on the choice programs on October 12th, specifically because of this. And it originated in Minocqua, I believe. And so obviously organizations like SWASBO, WASBO, WASB, they're all supporting this because of the impact it's having on public education as well. So this is certainly not falling on deaf ears there. Maybe in other places it will, but hopefully something can be done because this, in my opinion, is very intentional and very specific on the way that this is happening to target public schools. So what happens annually on October 15th? Again, this was actually the 13th this year, but generally it's on the 15th of the month. So this is essentially where the Department of Public Instruction certifies our budget. Everything up until this point is as projection that DPI also partakes in. So it's not like school districts isolate themselves and project themselves. No, it's a conglomerate, and DPI works with us to project out what they believe these numbers are going to be. And every year it happens that there are changes because this is just how it works with audits and numbers being certified. So the first thing that happens is finalization of equalized property value. That's the first thing that happens. The second thing is they finalize equalization aid. And that number is important, especially to us, because we're more of a property poor district. So we get more aid. So when districts audits are certified, they can determine shared costs. So if districts spend more money and they are heavily aided, they receive more aid in subsequent years. There's only one pot of money. So if a different district gets more money, other districts get less of the pot. So it's like the last thing that happens. Private vouchers and special needs scholarships are determined and finalized. Excuse me. Our audit, which is important for the 22-23 year for revenue and expenditures, all public school districts go through that at a certain time because it impacts aid for the following year. Aid's a year delayed, so what you spent last year impacts your subsequent year. So this year's aid is based on last year's spending. Uncounted pupil allocation, it's a non-recurring exemption. We receive typically the most money in the state in this exemption because we are a border district of Milwaukee. And so any student that's open enrolled out needs to be recorded prior to third Friday. So then if the student is a student in West Dallas attending Milwaukee or any other district, the district would register them in Opal, the portal, that they're a non-resident student attending their district. We then would count the student as an open enrollment out student, hence our member, and receive funding for them. What happens every year is Milwaukee, and it's 98% Milwaukee. Milwaukee will report students after the count and go, hey, this student we thought was a resident, and we actually are going to post date them back in Opal. So October, call today, 23rd, they'll post back a student saying, this student's been attending all year with us. We just found out they live in West Dallas. They can post date them back in Opal, but the problem is the state wrote the check. There's no going back. So what happens is they go, hey, you didn't get paid for the student this year, but we'll pay you back next year for it. So our uncounted pupil allocation is an unknown number every year. Last year it was 1.5 million. This year it's 2 million. Well, that's an increase in revenue, which comes directly from the taxpayers. So there's things that happen throughout the cycle of a budget that can happen. Transfer service costs are students who move into our district, either from other local agencies or out of state. They're special education students that require us to have different services that we don't currently have. So that's an increased cost. That's a recurring exemption. And that was something that's also in the budget too. All of these things get certified. I mentioned this at length because this is what happens, and this is the final day for that. So the changes here, which we'll go through here in a second, these are all the changes from the preliminary budget to the final budget, and we're going to go through these. So number one, the biggest one is aid. So equalization aid decreased by about 1.7 million for the projection. Two reasons why. Number one, almost $818,000 decrease due to a DPI statewide error. So DPI during the July estimate and then during the September estimate had factored that the Racine, their data they had showed that Racine had $100 million surplus. DPI did not catch it and correct it. So therefore the pot for everyone else got bigger because they spent less money. Well, when they corrected the pot, our slice of the pie went down by $818,000. The other reason is the other part of this 1.78 million is that when audits happen and shared costs get determined, they finalize everyone's pie. Well, you can see in July, they thought our pie would be bigger, and they found out through audits, districts spent more money than they thought they did. So then that's hence the decrease from our original estimate. I mentioned transfer of service. We received about $600,000 in increased revenue, which is directly for increased expenses. So every dollar you see there is due to, we had to hire another aide, we had to hire another special ed teacher, we had to increase transportation costs for a student who has an IEP. So it's not like we receive more money, now what do we do with it? No, we have to submit who the person is, how much they're being paid, what's their benefits, how much the bus costs, who's the kid, all the IEPs. And the good news is that we get this money forever because we have the cost forever. So that will increase our per pupil amount. And then as I mentioned about uncounted pupils, that is the amount of revenue we did not receive in the past year for students who did not attend our school district but are members. Private vouchers, again, $2 million, a little over $2 million in final budget increase for private vouchers from 22-23 to 23-24. Again, all expenses from private voucher aid formula come directly from resident taxpayers, and that increase alone is a 32-cent mill rate increase for taxpayers in the community. So just alone, that's 32 cents from the community. Open enrollment, two different stories here. So open enrollment we decreased revenue. So that's not a good thing, right? Less money is not a good thing, but the story makes sense. Our open enrollment is based on a calculation of the number of teachers we have and the number of students we have. So we plan with projections to 92% of every student that attends here. And if a class is at 90% filled, then the 2% difference is open enrollment students, right? As we've consolidated schools and schools become more efficient because they're enrolled more to the capacity of what they should be, we're going to have less inefficiencies, meaning more of our classes are closer to 92%, which means we have less open enrollment seats. So that makes sense to me. Open enrollment out. This is kind of a question, not sure. This is a good thing again. We have a 300,000 decrease in expenses, meaning we have less kids from last year open enrollment out, which is a good thing. So certainly an area to dig in and dive deeper this year to find out why. And I know we've been talking about doing a study there. And so that's something that we'll, as time comes available, we will work on doing too. So two interesting things, just 2 points to go ahead, Noah, your question.
Oh, so I just want to go back to the private vouchers. So this year, the increased costs for private vouchers is funded by 100%
Correct.
taxpayers. Yep. So that 32 cent per thousand increase is only for private vouchers.
Yep.
But with the new law, now private voucher students out get more money than we get for a public school student. So moving forward, is that difference always going to be funded 100% by additional cost to local taxpayers? Or does that difference in cost come out of our operating budget moving forward after this first year?
So, okay, good question. So the amount we pay for a student, the difference only impacts 9 through 12 students and special education students. A K-8 student, we receive more than we get.
Mhm.
That's part of the contrary argument to your question.
Okay.
Is the argument is, well, it washes itself out. So that's a good question, but 100% all the dollars that go for private vouchers come from the community. Now, our ability to levy for those students, that's your question. The answer is no, we end up having to pay the difference because we only get per member. Does that make sense? So the difference, so if we had all 9 through 12 students, we would actually, there'd be a net, I guess, a net expense instead of a net revenue. Now, if you had 50% of each, then it might be a net wash. It just depends on how it shakes out. If you have K-8 heavy or 9-12 heavy.
Do we know that?
I don't have the data yet. No.
I think that's something that would be important to know.
Mhm.
I think it's an important story to tell, whichever way it is.
Yeah.
And especially if it's decreasing, it's taking money away from our public school students
Mhm.
to fund private school students.
Yep.
I think that's an important thing, but
Mhm.
it's important to know where it is.
Yep.
Thank you.
So then again, shifting to how this gets calculated. So the revenue limit authority minus aid equals the allowable limited revenue. Essentially, what's the tax levy? So again, revenue limit and aid get certified in the 13th, and that's how we're able to calculate the projected or the final tax levy and final mill rate. So the final revenue limit authority is 96 million, just over 96 million. And you can look at the bottom, the comparison to 22-23. So I want to highlight a couple things here. So our total revenue limit authority increased by 3.9 million, almost 2.1 of that is private vouchers. So over 50% of that increase comes from directly private schools. Total increase percentage, 4.3%. So 92 million, just over 92 to just over 96 is about a 4.3% increase. One of the things I want to hit too here tonight is to show, and 23-24 data is not available until every school district does what we're doing right now and certifies their levy. And then this number will come out and we'll have that here too. But one of the things that I've learned a little bit more about is people don't understand that not every school district gets the same amount of money per kid. It's different for every single district. And it is the story of why we'll talk about in the workshop tonight. We're asking for operating dollars for teacher salaries. And this is exactly the story that I want to talk about tonight, because when we certify the levy tonight, this impacts per pupil, right? So our school, I took, I think there's 13 districts here. I took all of them and I pulled their per pupil from last year. So we received just over $10,500 last year per kid. The average of this region is $11,053. Which is a difference of $553.03. If we received just the average of what the districts on the screen get, we would have an additional $3.87 million in operating revenue, which is the amount we're asking for to essentially $4 million to pay our teachers more. So again, is our question unreasonable, or is it what everyone's getting? I just want to hit on that. It's a very important story. Christine, a question?
I was just gonna say, I only recently learned that was Tommy Thompson, who set these revenue limits back in the late 90s. And here we are almost 25 years later, we can't push ourselves out of here because the rich already were richer and get to stay that way. And we have to increase only by the percentage that we go through. And that's incredibly frustrating as someone who didn't even live in this state at that time. And the system's broken for many school districts.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, and that's a great point. When schools were funded from inflation to revenue limits, Governor Thompson was the governor in Wisconsin. What he did to establish the per pupil amount was he froze every district based upon their spending per kid, literally their revenue divided by kids. So if your district just passed an operating referendum the year before for 3 years, he froze you at it. He said, well, you passed it for 3 years. Now you're doing it forever.
Yep.
So every district that is higher has either subsequently post the revenue limit shift past referendums that are operating of nature, increasing per pupil amounts, or they were higher, to your point, Kristen, when that was passed. That certainly isn't the case for every district, right? And certainly you can see some districts have under levied in certain years, not many, because public dollars are hard to come by for public schools. So, but that's the history and the story. And I think the story is very well pointed to what the question we're asking here in a little over a year. Okay, equalization aid. So our equalization aid went up just under 5%, but the amount is what I want to hit on. 2.7 million of increased dollars for the community. Again, aid offsets the burden of the taxpayer. So you can say, well, it went up 4.83% and our revenue limit went up 4.3, but look at the amount. Revenue limit went up by almost 4 million. Aid went up by 2.7. The difference comes from the community, right? If it was the opposite, you'd see the levy decreasing, but that isn't the case. Equalized property value, again, another important story to tell. So our equalized property value for 2024 is 6.584 billion. Our actual, the 6.584 billion, plus in the Berlin petition, the portion that DPI has reallocated to New Berlin is 6.668 billion, a difference of about $84 million, or a mill rate impact of 8 cents. So private vouchers plus the New Berlin petitions a 40-cent mill rate impact to the community. You can see overall 5.3 billion to 6.584 billion is an increase of 700 million. Good question, Mr. Lee.
So I just want to pause here for a second because this piece right here might be the first time that a lot of anyone who's watching this and anyone who watches this later might know about this. But there was a petition to remove 160 properties that we denied, that DPI through the flawed process approved, and we're in the process of appealing that decision right now. But because of that, and because DPI is the one that their flawed process approved it, has taken that money away, even though the process is not at this point said and done. But since we did not receive that money, everyone else's tax bill will go up 8 cents per $1,000 with no input from us and no input from them. And so I just think it's very important for people to understand that. That's part of the reason why the levy that we're looking at today is much different than the one that we looked at previously. And if it is something that anyone watching this now or in the future is opposed to, I would reach out to DPI to tell them their process needs to be changed for how you look at petitions to remove properties from school districts. So that's all I want to say.
Oh, thanks for the background. That is important. So.
Well said.
Okay, moving on to private vouchers. So I hit on this a bit before. Again, I want to highlight it again. As the comparison from 22-23 to 23-24, you can see private vouchers have increased by just under $2.1 million, or a 42% increase in total allocation for private schools. And the amounts for K-8, 9 through 12, and for students with special education needs have increased by an aggregate of just over 23%. To break this down, this slide talks a little bit about the WPCP, which is the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program. And the Wisconsin Parental Choice Program was adopted, and the income threshold was established for students for public dollars to go to private schools with a 1% increase each year. So at the bottom where it's in blue, you can see the WPCP cap went up by 1%. So that means students who 8% of our resident membership, families who are considered low income by the state, can apply to private voucher schools and receive no tuition. The dollars come from the community to us, and then we pay the private school for that. Next year, it'll be 9%. It goes up by 1% every year. Once it hits 10, the percent is lifted. There is no limit. So obviously, given the increase in revenue that private schools received and that we're maxing out the percent, I had concerns. I asked DPI, what should we expect entering into 25, 26, or whatever the year that becomes 11, which is uncapped? And the answer was it's unknown. We don't know. So some digging to do there. But the concern here is that you can see the percentage of our total levy last year was 12.3%. This year it's 16%. So 16% of what we receive as a district from the community goes directly to private schools. It's it's just a fact. So with it expiring in 25, 26, meaning in 26, 27, that cap being lifted, it's certainly something to consider because it's unknown. And again, the dollars come directly from the community. They have no impact on the Fund 10 budget of the district. So. Okay, all funds tax levy, the comparison from 2023 to 2024 is a 3.896 million increase to the tax levy or a 9.71% increase. And again, over half of that is coming from private vouchers. Breakdown of that, the general fund is 35 million. Debt service is cut in half again. Remember the debt service, we've paid off our existing Fund 38 debt. What is left is energy efficiency. And that will, I think, run out in 26, 27. So that number hovers around that for the next 3 or 4 years. The community service Fund 80 levy is increased for the West Side Recreation Project, which produces a total funds, all funds levy of 44 million, 17. Well, you can read it. 17, it's hard to say that. So 44 million. One of the things I want to talk about tonight too is to talk about the historical tax levy. And I think, again, looking into look out and looking backwards, look forward, it's good. It's important to keep in mind, you know, how much the tax levy is going up and going down each year, but it's important to look back and see where it's been. And this to me is a really important slide to soak into and look at, because when I looked back at the tax levy over the last 11 years now, projecting this year to be 11, last year 10, what I found interesting is that one of the objectives, I believe, of our work together collaboratively is to do our best to maintain the tax levy for the community. We don't want huge spikes. We don't want huge increase. You know, we want to try to maintain it the best we can. That isn't always possible given some of the things I've just talked about tonight that are outside of our control. But when it's within our control, we should try to balance maintaining district priorities with our community, right? Try to balance that out to try to meet every constituent where they're at. One of the things I want to mention is, given inflation, which we'll talk about in a second, if, in my opinion, if in 2012, 2013, our total all funds tax levy from the community was just under $45 million. My opinion again is, if you would tell someone in 2012, hey, for the next 11 years, your tax levy is only going to go down except in 1 year. Your tax levy today is less than it was 11 years ago. Most people wouldn't believe you because of inflation being over 30% over the same period. So I think it's just important to keep it in context that there's going to be increases and decreases in this given things that we can't control. But overall, our team has done a great job for the community, in my opinion. And it's just this year, given what we've just discussed, there's very little we can do to adjust that. So this shows you how aid has increased while the tax levy it's kind of overlaid here. So the one time where it's inverted is when in 2017-18, when the district sold the property that we're in today. And then due to our fund balance, we had to save the money, which then has a shared cost decrease, which means our aid decreased with it, which you can see the levy goes up and the aid comes down. In subsequent years, that wasn't the case. So you saw a huge aid increase in 18-19 to offset the community, which is why it went right back down. You can see in 16-17, 41.72, in 18-19, 41.77. So it's pretty flat, right? And that's just the difference from 16-17 to 17 to then 18-19. What I wanted to do here was to overlay the tax levy with inflation, because I wanted to find out, like, what has inflation been since 2012 to today? Curious to know what the levy would be if it followed inflation, right? So starting in 2012, and this chart's a little hard to read, so I'll iterate it for you. In 2012, the total tax levy was 44.75 million. Okay. Inflation that year was 2.1%. So if every year I took from beginning in 2012 and just applied inflation to it, the total tax levy today would be 48.27 million. We're proposing just over 44 million. So the tax levy with inflation has gone up, where it would be proposed to go up to 48 million. And we're proposing that it goes down by almost 3% from when it was in 2012. So in 2012, it was 44.75. Today, the proposal you'll see for your review and approval is just over 44 million, when in reality, with inflation, it would be 48.27 million, a total increase in inflation of 31% over 11 years. You can see here at the far right, the column in blue is the tax levy with inflation beginning in 2012. And you can see in orange what we're proposing tonight. So you see that this is the stark difference there. Again, revenue limits do not follow inflation. It's just that when we look at tax levies and tie it to inflation, you try to be linear with everything costs more, and schools are no different than that, right? We follow the same things with utilities and staffing and benefits, all the things that inflation does. We're very tuned into because of those reasons. It's an expense. So you can see the levy with inflation, 48 million, and you can see the proposed actual levy at 44. So a difference of just over $4 million. The mill rate. So the mill rate is calculated by the total school-based tax levy divided by equalized property value times 1,000. The mill rate difference again in 23-24. The recommendation is a mill rate of $6.69. Again, 40 cents of that is from the New Berlin petitions Mr. Lee gave historical context to, and then 32 cents is from private vouchers. 40 cents of the $6.69 comes from those two things. The mill rate in 22-23 was $6.56. So you can see a 13-cent increase from last year, or a 1.83%, I guess, year over year. Something to note at the bottom, the average mill rate in the state of Wisconsin last year was $7.68. So we were well over $1 cheap, I guess, different. It was cheaper than $1, which is 14.6% difference. Okay, so what does a $6.69 mill rate mean for the homeowners in our community? So for $100,000 of value, the total school-based portion of the property taxes is $669. $200,000 home is $1,338. $300,000 is $2,007. The difference you can see here for a mill rate perspective, 13 cents. The average home in West Allis in 2023 in our community was $240,000, which means the mill rate increase of 13 cents comes out to $2.60 per month, or per year, $31.20. That's a mill rate calculation using the average value of $240,000. That's what it was last year. The Westside Community Recreation Center, just wanted to highlight this from Shelley's presentation a few weeks ago. So the phase descriptions are here. So phase 0 is demolition of the original building. Phase 1's remodeled existing space, and phase 2 is the fitness center. And you can see here the total cost of those three phases is essentially between $9 and $10 million. So from 22-23's levy and 23-24's levy projection, there's a fund balance of 5.275 with next year's levy to come. So that total budget, assuming that this year's recommendation is certified and then approved in subsequent years, would put Shelley right in the middle of those two for the project to be completed on the timeline we've set forth. Okay, we're getting to the end. Last couple of slides here. So what are the options for the school boards across the state tonight or tomorrow, depending on when they have their meeting? So school boards under Wisconsin state statute have until November 1st to certify the tax levy for the state of Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. School boards certainly have the option and ability to change the amount they levy. They can under levy, they can levy to the max, they can do anything within their power to adjust given the priorities of the district and the priorities of the community. So the options, as I see it tonight, are to certify the tax levy on based on what's been recommended and provided tonight, and or certify the levy based on a reduced Fund 80 levy other than provided. Certainly Fund 10 is an option too. If we under levied in Fund 10, it would mean running an unbalanced budget this year, which has not been a priority of the community or the district at this point. But certainly an option here too as well. What that looks like, you can see here kind of a table to show what the differences would be and some other options. But what's recommended is to certify the levy based upon the Westside Recreation Center as previously presented to the board. But you can see, you can, if you wanted to levy into Fund 80 a flat mill rate, that would be, the Fund 80 levy would be decreased by about $800,000, which you'd run a flat mill rate. What that means is it would impact the lane timeline and it would extend it, right? If you wanted to have a Fund 80 flat, meaning that what we levied last year to this year was the same, that would produce a decrease in the mill rate, but then we'd be essentially putting the lane project on hold until the funds were, enough funds were there to do that. So with that, I guess I would pause and take questions. That's all I have tonight.
Questions from the board? Ms. Kaiser.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but committee did leave with the recommendation of what Mr. Norris is recommending, I believe. So,
So the financial committee was in support. It has
yeah.
passed the
financial committee
budget.
was for it.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Mr. Sikich is good. If there's no questions, I'd look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any last minute discussion? All those in favor to pass the budget as recommended, say aye. Opposed? Mr. Sikich is a thumbs up. All right, that passes. Thank you very much for your work on this,
Thank you.
Mr. Norris, with your team. It's unfortunate, there's many things that we don't have control over, and I am sure our community will be understanding of that, the levy is different than originally proposed back in June and then later on in August. But I think that those things are not our fault, and we need to move forward with the budget and the plans that we have already committed to, and ensuring that the best education we can provide to our students, that we do so. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
With that, move on to second action item this evening, 10.2 resolution approving a limited term conservation easement at Mitchell Elementary School. Mr. Norris and Mr. Eichmann, welcome.
Thank you.
I will turn this over to Steve to give you some background about why we're talking about this tonight, kind of what it is and what this means for the district, and then kind of next steps. So, Mr. Eichmann.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So this is a project that started in the summer of 2020, back when Mr. Johnson was the principal at Mitchell. And it was a project that was vetted through both Dr. Robinson and Mr. Norris's predecessor and approved by them. And we all know what happened in 20 and 21. So the project took a lot longer to complete than what we had thought it would initially. Initially, the proposal was for about $230,000, and the whole goal of this was to reduce the amount of rainwater that goes from parking lots, sidewalks, whatever it may be, into the sewer. That's why we're working with the MMSD, or the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District. And from the very beginning, the part of the grant was that there would never be any more than 50% of the total cost of the project would be reimbursed. Initially, as it was proposed, it was a little over $230,000 is what Mr. Johnson had written the grant for, or wanted to write the grant for. Working with Mr. Norris's predecessor, we got that down a little bit, took out some of the items that we didn't feel were necessary or would add the same amount of benefit as some of the other programs. So we've been working on this. We've worked, like I said, with MMSD, the DNR, with the state of Wisconsin as well, because we have underground cisterns that collect the rainwater from the roof at Mitchell. And we have filters in there, and we have pumps in that. It's all licensed and installed by a plumbing contractor. So we can use that then to water plants or, gardens, whatever, because they have gardens over on that side of the building. And so one of the last steps of this long process is that the MMSD has a limited term conservation easement is what they're asking for. And they asked for that from the very beginning. It's for 25 years, but it's only for the areas that were impacted or covered under this grant, where work was actually done. So if you're familiar with Mitchell, the big area in the back where there's all the trees, so it would be there. It would be where the cisterns are located, and it would be where the native planting area is. That's the scope of the entirety of what the easement is for. And the purpose of them having that easement is that, they don't want individuals or organizations to do the work, put it in, and then just abandon it. And, they want you to keep it up. And so that's allows them to then legally come onto the grounds and look and see, are you keeping it up? Are you maintaining it the way that it was intended to be maintained? And one of the things that the other stipulations is that the easement has to be signed by the superintendent of schools, but we also needed to have one of their stipulations that there has to be something that specifically states that the superintendent has authorization to, sign that limited term easement. So we worked with legal counsel, and that's how we came up with that resolution that does that. And again, this is just for those areas on Mitchell. It doesn't impact the rest of that, the grounds there, or any other of our building or grounds.
So just a couple of things to highlight before your question, Kristen. So at the time, Principal Johnson was working at the time with Mitchell to create like a STEM and green space school. And so that's where some of this started, was how can we get additional funds to push some of the initiatives around, a energy free kind of school, right? So that was kind of some of the thinking. And then the easements, and the word easement's kind of an odd word. We talked about this internally a little bit, like, are they building a road? Like, what's happening, right? They just have access to it with permission. So they can come and research. I mean, they want to figure out kind of how our plants grow. I mean, all this stuff. Essentially, we're preventing water to going into the sewer, which helps, less usage there, which means less maintenance there. So they're trying to work with districts to really all public schools, public sectors to do things like this. So just additional information. Good, Kristen, with the question.
At the Mitchell Listening and Learning Session, this was a big concern, was the upkeep of the rain garden, the stormwater trees, all that kind of stuff. Does this kind of like resolve that concern in that MMSD takes over those areas? Like,
Yeah, they're not, are they?
because there actually is no garden. It's pretty run down at this point. The
Yeah.
trees are not doing great.
Yeah, that was my question.
So that is something
Caring
that,
for is an issue.
that's something that we're responsible for doing, is maintaining that.
Okay.
So they're just checking in and basically kind of keeping note on what's going on, but they're not actually physically doing.
The trees or anything?
Yeah, that's correct.
Cause I know, so
Okay.
what about, like, cause I know one thing that was brought up at that listening and learning is that apparently a bunch of these trees that were put in are dead. So do we know how that's gonna be handled, in the big scope of all of this, like, is there anything where we can backtrack and, take care of what is dead or whatever that's already there?
Fort Mitchell, because it's
Mhm.
Yeah,
a group of people who are trying to make it work, but this was someone else's vision.
right. And they want to make it better, but it's kind of like a lot of the parents that were at the listening and learning session are kind of like, we don't know where to start
Yeah.
and what to do. And they were looking for direction. And so I guess this is the perfect time for it, but we're kind of like, we weren't really sure how to guide them either.
Mhm.
So this would be a great time to maybe give them some guidance. But I know that was something that was brought up too, is like so much of what's already there is dead or overgrown or whatever, that they're just not really sure where to go with that.
Yeah, and that's something that I'm working with the original contractor on, can we have those trees replaced under
Okay.
warranty? And then also, making sure that the grounds department, that's part of when they're there mowing the grass and that's something they're doing as well.
Okay,
And when we had an agreement when the initial part of number of trees went in, is that the city cuts down any number of trees during the year for whatever reason. And then we have access to get the mulch from them and then spread that around
oh, okay,
in there. And one of the things, as Mr. Norris was talking about, was like a STEM education type thing. The way the trees have been planted is the goal is at some point when they get fully grown, that there will be a natural canopy walkway through the trees. So I mean, that's
okay,
obviously going to take a while, but
right,
that was there. So there was some, a method of how they were planted and where they were planted, and then also the type of trees.
okay, okay.
But just to hit on your concern, I do have a concern with that. And, this is what happens when you approve everything without asking questions. I don't know if there was a plan of like, when Mr. Johnson's not here, right? That was,
Right.
know,
Well, and that's where too, they had a lot of
But-
changeover,
yeah.
with principals,
Yeah.
and there was lots of ideas that got started and then kind of fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great parents there that want
Mhm.
to keep things going and whatever, and kind of see things through, but it's like a lot of little things got started and
Yeah.
weren't seen through, and so they're just kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, what do we start with? Like the
Yeah.
raised gardens, it's like they weren't really done properly, kind of a thing, so they're like, okay, do we just get rid of them all
Yeah.
together? Is that okay? They just are kind of looking for someone to say, who do we go to first of all? Because I know that was something that they brought up too, like, who do we talk to? Is it the principal? Is it Dr. Robinson? Is it,
Mhm.
who do we ask to get the okay? Like,
Yeah.
we want to just get rid of them, and have less to worry about right now.
Mhm.
you know, who can we get the okay from? Because we're fine with that. You know,
Yeah.
they just want some guidance so that they're
Yeah.
willing to kind of do the work if they
Yeah.
need to, or, you know,
Mhm.
but they're just not really sure
Sure.
who to go to.
We can certainly work with the new principal, Ms. Wall, and then also, this is also the money that we'll get by approving the resolution or it's the resolution, right? Yeah, the resolution is about $96,000, which the money can go right. You know, can be used for that too. So, sorry, Amy, go ahead.
Have them please reach out to me. I do native planting. This is what I do. I can come there. Right now, it looks like a mess, but we want to leave some of those plantings when you're doing native because that's where not to give them a science lesson, but the animals nest and then all that kind of stuff, but have them reach, like, in the meantime, until we figure out who's in charge of what, they're more than welcome. I have days off during the week that I can come, I can look at it, I can tell you
Okay.
what can be pulled, what doesn't, because literally this is what I'm doing in my backyard right now, but
Okay.
I'm,
Their PTA.
yeah,
Their
yeah,
ones
they're
are good.
in the
good
meantime,
boys,
I
yeah.
will, and I can reach out to them also, but I just want to say in the meantime, that's my area,
Okay.
so,
Thank you, Amy.
yeah,
My
thank you,
staff
that's
and I will
awesome.
Do what we can to assist, you know, guys.
Okay, that's fantastic.
The thing is with native gardens, you don't actually have to maintain them
Yep.
once they get started,
It just
Right.
looks,
Yeah.
it's just that people have to
It
get
just-
past,
what it looks like.
this is what it should look like, but that's not like.
It's not a flower bed.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. It's not like, you know, go to, there's certain things you want to keep up because
Looks
it's
ugly in the.
it's supposed to feed the animal, you know, provide shelter, provide
Yeah.
seeds.
Yeah, well, and that's why I think if they just had that guidance from someone who maybe knew that, where they're just
No,
kind of
but
not
it's-
sure like what
yeah.
the purpose was, and then it just was kind of left to go, that they're just, if someone could say, yeah, here's what you do and what we could, where the vision can take us now, and have a plan where it was just kind of started and then just.
Yeah, and I
left to
can talk
go.
to them too about even reaching out to Fresh Guardians who works with MMSD and does a lot of that's where I get a lot of my.
Oh, okay.
from. So anyways. we'll
Yeah,
figure it
but
out.
yeah, the PTA, that's fantastic. Thank you.
So. Oh, Mr. Prince,
You can go, I can go after you.
25 years is a long time. How long are the cisterns supposed to last?
I think the warranty is 12 to 15 years.
So those fail, that's on our dime to fix then.
Correct.
Yeah, so I was around when this was all being proposed. I will tell you that I was never told that it's 50% of the cost, number one. And number two, we were never told that it was a 25-year commitment to maintain what we're putting in. That's a long time to maintain something. The trees, if they live, presumably will take care of themselves. However, the cisterns is a different story. If something breaks with those, you have to dig them up and put new ones in. And I presume that was probably the majority of the cost.
It was a
Was
good
setting it
portion
up.
of yes.
Because planting trees isn't that expensive. Buying the trees, putting them in the ground is not that big of a deal. Native gardens are, you know, you can almost do that for free. So I think that the cisterns is the biggest portion of this, and that's my concern. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we're stuck now because we've already signed this thing and committed to it. But it is a concern that if something breaks with that, well, MMSC's like, well, I guess you got to fix it now because you said you were going to, and we paid, you know, we gave you half the money to put them in.
But we haven't received the money. That's what this would do.
Right, I know this gets us the money, but
But it also gets us the obligation you're referring to.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, and a lot of the cost was the cisterns, but a lot of that was the initial, it was the permitting, it was the, because we had to have a, you know, a licensed plumbing contractor design it, draw up the plan, work with the state. We wouldn't have to do that part of it again. It would just be tear it up and replace. There wouldn't be any design costs or anything like that anymore. You know, the pumps are already there. I mean, all of that is there, so it would be, you know, take out the cistern. And, you know, and the other is that, you know, that the warranty is 12 years. Realistically, it's probably going to last 15 to 20. I mean, it's insulated as well, so that, you know, because we're in the climate that we are. So we've taken steps like that as well to do what we can to make sure that it lasts as long as possible.
Mr. Burns,
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One with the easement and their ability to access it, is there something where they have to notify us to come onto it? Because with safety and all the other things that are going on with our schools, having somebody walking around our school grounds might raise some concerns with people, like, is there a notification piece for them to say they'll be there?
The expectation with them is no different than with anybody else. You can check in with the office and let them know who you are, why you're there, and what you're there for.
And they're aware of this.
Yes.
And then the other question that I had, with concerns to the Mitchell parents and things, do we have parents that are just wanting to come in and make alterations to the property, like,
Yeah,
is
From
that,
what they were saying, yeah.
Here's what guidance.
Yeah, they
but
just,
is that something that we allow with parents coming on and altering our property?
Yeah,
I'm not saying that their intentions aren't great, but like, who's to say they are part of that group and they'll just be like, I'm just gonna kick this tree and water it.
yeah, or even like a gardening club, like they could even what, but that's why they haven't done anything yet, is because they weren't sure how to go about it. So they haven't done anything like that yet.
yeah, the short answer is no. We don't let people just come and
Right.
hack down our trees. The best answer is to work with the principal, put a plan together. That's, the triangle of community students, parents, and the staff. So,
And that's what they were told at the listening learning session, just to be clear.
yeah.
Talk to your principal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, and we also have something in place called a building improvement projects that the school can fill out for if there is a project that, the school wanted to do like that, where they submit that. It's, we look at the cost, the benefits, what's all involved with it, and then internally we make a decision as to whether or not that's something we would want to approve or approve.
All right, and then the last piece is, while it might be talking to the principal right now, this is now not the original person's stream, it's now the district stream, so who are we appointing to be in charge, like what position is going to be in charge of this?
Ultimately, it's probably me,
Okay.
the facilities department.
Okay.
Because it's on the grounds, and so that is part of the facilities department.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Carr.
I just think that, referring back to Mitchell, because I was there for that listening session, I think that they just need an update. And they need to understand that, it's not a garden, it is, a natural habitat. And I think once they understand that, I think that it should be left alone.
Yeah, well, that's, I think, part of the problem is there's just not sure what it's supposed to be, because it was somebody else's vision who's no longer there, and then it just kind of kept getting passed along. Nobody ever really took it over because nobody ever really knew, I think that's a big part of the problem.
You said what I was thinking, because when I know we were at the listening and learning session, I was trying to figure out, like, what are you talking about?
Mhm.
And then about a week later, the agreement came where it needed board approval, and that's when we kind of connected the dots and said, okay, this is related to this. Oh, okay, it makes a lot of sense now.
Mhm.
So I agree. I think there needs to be some education about this. We can schedule with the PTA, because that's who was asking all the questions. So we'll get that done.
The nice thing about those types of gardens, they're really easy to be educational.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm saying. I could even just, there's very little stuff like, there's a few things you need to do to prep it, but yeah, but I'm
Right.
saying even
But if it's
I can
already
reach
there,
out
yeah.
just to provide them with a little like.
Well, yeah, and if they
Or I can
could
come to
meet
like
with
a
them, that'd be a
club
great
meeting
time
and-
for Amy to go and just kind of share what you know with them,
Even ask
Yeah.
them, if they could just,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
let's write down what we see, or,
Yeah.
Right.
talking about life cycles and things like that, like
Yeah.
that's often seen, like, there's a lot of insects and, things, animals. that-
Right.
That's why you put it in, and plus it helps, they have deep roots. It helps with the whole water thing, that's why it's called
Sure.
rain gardens, they have very deep roots, and so they can go in and the water goes down into the water table instead of going into the sewer
Mhm.
system, which is.
Well, again, there's just a lot that they weren't informed of either as to how this works and stuff, so they just don't know. There's just a lot that wasn't shared with them either.
Anything else on this? So our options are really, we approve this and get half our money back. But then we're committed for 25 years, or we don't approve it. We're not committed to anything. We already paid the money. We get no more money back. Is that what my understanding of this?
That's correct.
Okay.
We get no money back, but we don't have to worry about 25 years with upkeep if we don't want to, or we get some money back and we do commit 25 years for the upkeep, which started back, I presume, in 20, whenever they put it in, or does it start now?
It starts now.
Oh, okay. Well, starting now. 2049 will be 2048.
I mean, we're kind of already in it, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I kind of really don't have a choice to make.
We are, but at the same time, I'm kind of curious, like, what does that 25 years of upkeep look like? What is the potential expenses like? The easy answer is it makes sense to go for the reimbursement, but I'm worried by accepting the reimbursement, we could end up signing a deal that is going to end up costing us more money down the road.
Well, that's the decision, right? That's why I asked about the warranty about the cistern. So
Yeah,
that would be the
I-
most
I-
expensive
yeah,
piece.
I know. It's just, yeah.
If we had to replace it, it would be the cisterns that would need to get replaced, but Mr. Eichmann feels that, you know, if they go to 20 years, I mean, that's pretty good. And it's not like it's a bad thing to have for the area, the community, the school. I mean, it's a responsible thing to have as well. So like, it's just like architectural or like, you know, something to look at it. Literally, you can't see it, but it's just doing good things for our community.
Mr. Norris, did you consider this a fiscally responsible long-term option?
Well, it's kind of one of those, it depends on how long they last,
Yeah,
so.
that's my concern, that we kick the can down the road to another school board. That could be very different.
Well, we'd be on the hook. I presume MMSD would take us to court if we were like, well, we're not gonna fix those. And they came and said, hey, you're supposed to upkeep this for 25 years and it's only year 7. You know, you gotta fix this. And then there'd be a court thing we'd have to deal with, I presume. I mean, maybe the reason will only be like, oh yeah, man, this was just not what we thought it was gonna be. We're not gonna like hold your feet to the fire, but legally, we could be on the hook for it.
And really, I mean, could be some cost down the road if we replace trees, you know, when they're out of warranty. Trees cost, but they don't cost a lot. The other is that, as Mrs. Deal said, that there's not a lot of upkeep to the natural landscaping.
Right.
The real cost would be if we had to replace a cistern. But the cisterns themselves were about $15,000, but that's for 3 of them.
Okay. How many do we have? Is that, we just have 3?
We have 3.
Oh,
So at this point, I guess I likely would just recommend that we've committed to the project. We should get the money back. And unless the money is needed currently to do anything, we could put the money in an account and try to make money on it in the case that something happens in 20 years, then that should cover, I would assume that would cover anything like that.
can they go to like Fund 46? Is
So
there,
we could put it in a CD and
or
keep
put it in a
it.
CD?
Mhm. Yeah, with rates right now, I mean, make some money on it. So yeah. At this point, the work's done.
Yeah.
It's $100,000 almost. Yeah, so.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my thought. If we've already shelled out the money, and we're gonna get that money back, we need to save some of it for this project.
Yeah.
I don't know, 96,000, that's a lot. I mean, do we need all that? I mean,
That's a,
Well, if we put it in a CD and it can earn interest,
we don't have to earmark it. I mean, like it's one of those where we don't have to spend it on that.
Yeah.
But we could.
Good, yeah, exactly.
can we put it someplace that won't affect our aid?
46 would be the best option for that.
And that would be my suggestion, is something that's not gonna reduce our aid, since we
Yeah.
already have enough of those things as it is.
That's what that's for, long term.
I think with the additional information about the cost of what those,
The cistern,
what
yeah.
those were and everything, I think, that probably makes sense.
Anything else? Not, I'd look for a motion.
so moved.
Second.
Moved in seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Siggins, just a thumb up. Opposed? All right, that passes. Thank you very much. And now we're gonna move into our workshop for this evening, our financial stability and efficiency workshop. 11.1, review and discussion of potential 2024 referendum. Where we're gonna learn about all things communication.
No, it's okay, yeah. Thanks. Do you want to hang here and get some questions? Yeah, yeah.
I should ask before we move into this, do we need to take a 5-minute break before we go in? This is going to be a little bit lengthy, or are we okay moving forward with it as it is?
I wouldn't mind 5 minutes.
Potty break.
All right, so we will take a 5-minute recess and be right back. All right, welcome back. We are back from our 5 to 7 minute recess, so we can start our workshop on the review and discussion of potential 2024 referendum communication and review, I believe. So I will turn it over to Dr.
Dr. Robinson.
So good evening. We are at that particular point where we want to kind of give a sense of direction where we're going with the referendum for 2024. And during our listening and learning sessions, we've had the opportunity to really figure out or find out where we are as a district, what those needs are. So it's been a great opportunity for us to gain data. But one of the things that I've been reiterating to the public is that referendum is not about Terrence Robinson. It's about our. Okay, now you can use a lot of other words after our, but in this particular presentation, you're going to hear the word our a lot, O-U-R. So our students, our schools, our communities, our district, our West Way. We are 4 communities with 15 schools, and it's about our. It's not about one individual. It's not about one situation. It's an inclusive opportunity to build stronger schools within our communities. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Stewart and to Aaron, who will guide us and lead us through the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Robbins, for the kickoff. And I couldn't agree anymore. This is about our district. And so tonight, you're going to hear a lot of things that are going to focus around facilities and trying to narrow the scope tonight. So we'll talk about narrowing the scope. And again, we're going to talk about how we intend to short-term do that and long-term do that in the plan. Tonight's about planning, organization. And then Dr. Stewart, the second half of the presentation will focus a lot on what the communication marketing plan is. Again, short and long-term, what the plan is. So we want to kick off tonight kind of focusing again on district priorities and needs. And so this is an extension of the August 21st workshop 1. So our district priorities and needs, again, as we've been talking about for a number of years, facilities and grounds is a continued need area of focus for us. And with aging facilities, it's something that we need to address sooner than later. Staff compensation, you just heard me talk about in the final budget approval. Where our low revenue per pupil amount is and our inability to pay staff compared to neighboring school districts, regional averages put staff on average 5 to 7% behind other districts in our area. So again, that is a need for us. And if our revenue per pupil was on average our neighboring districts, this wouldn't be a question. We'd be able to do that. And lastly, technology and curriculum. And these all connect back to our strategic plan, which is really the focus on academic outcomes and our equity beliefs, mission and values, and our core values of trust, integrity, and respect. So everything we're talking about tonight centers around those things in its own way. So our goals, our agenda tonight, we're going to talk through our goals. And I think that's an important place to start. And then we'll go through kind of a quick recap, kind of like a Netflix episode of what happened last time, right? So we'll talk through that a bit to just do a recap for anyone watching. It's been a couple months when we were last year. And then we'll talk through the facility piece, which is going to be one, narrowing our focus, talking about the facility options and questionnaire. So you'll get a glimpse of what we'll have you take tonight, either on your phone or on paper. And then it'll be a glimpse of what the community gets to take as kind of like a questionnaire pilot. You don't want to use the word survey, but a 5-question, like, where are you at with this? Where are you at with this? And then what we're intending to do is bring that data back in January to show, well, where are they at with this? And then in January, we'll draft the survey that'll go out to the whole community, more of a broad, more in deep. But this questionnaire will allow us to kind of dive a bit in, and then the survey can expand that dive. That's the intent. So through that, we'll do a facility process and questionnaire. I mentioned that. And then we'll have a short facility norming discussion. This is the time where I think you guys can start to weigh a little bit deeper beyond our facilities are old. What does that look like? What are my priorities? What are the district priorities, right? Start to coalesce around that. And then Amanda, if you want to talk about the communication piece of that.
Sure, then we'll move into a discussion on the communication and marketing plan for this 2024 referendum. So as we think short and long term, what we've already been doing and what we have coming up. And then we'll focus on our why, center this whole referendum around our schools, our students, our communities, our district. Look at the 2024 referendum slogan and then what is coming next.
Perfect. So our goals. So, and to me, this is, I know a long night, but this is to me, one of the most important slides we'll show tonight. And our goals, I believe in this order of this referendum campaign are, well, thank you for that. Yeah, get a little bit out of the way. That's great. Is one, to tell our own story. Dr. Robinson has been very clear, and through listening, learning sessions with the board, with our administration, like it's time for us to tell our own story. And we can shape that by telling it and not letting others tell it for us. I think that's a really great place to start. We want to, another goal, invite the community to be a part of shaping the future. We need people to reach across and help, and we need to be the ones to reach across first. And when you bring people in, we're all better for it, right? That's certainly an extension of the listening and learning sessions that Dr. Robinson's been hosting. We engage with our community around facility needs. This is not a new story. This is an ongoing story, and we're just shifting the way we intend to address it because it has to be addressed. The next one, inform our community about the work happening in our schools. There's great things happening in our schools, and there's a lot of people that love what goes on in our schools. So telling their story in many ways is possible. Showcase our strong and dedicated teaching staff. And lastly, leading a successful referendum camp in November 24. And I keep saying this, if we can accomplish all 5 goals in that order and we fail the referendum, we didn't fail. If we can bring people in and they understand our story and they engage with our schools and they know what's going on in our schools and they can meet our teachers and see our kids, that's progress. The goal, obviously, to pass the referendum because it's going to help our schools and our facilities, but we need to accomplish those goals too. So no matter what happens in the next year and a month, that's the goal. I think we'll all be better for it. So quick recap of the workshop. We'll go through this quickly, but we want to talk through kind of what was shared and why. So the first thing is, again, the facility story we've been telling. In 2021, a long-range facility master plan was developed to reflect kind of where the needs are from a capital improvement perspective of all of our schools. That plan, that process led to the consolidation of 3 schools at the end of last school year, being Lane Intermediate, Madison Elementary, and Longfellow Elementary, mainly due to a few things. One, declining enrollment, with our enrollment stabilizing here in the next 4 years, with an average class of 468 students. The projection shows this map of schools looks to be sustainable for the future. The second being the capital improvement needs of those schools. And you can see here the 2 links show both the facility master plan as well as the capital improvement project lists adjusted for inflation and the removal of the schools that we consolidated. Yeah, Gordon.
I know this presentation is only for private view. Will this be put publicly forward after the meeting so that if someone wants to look at these links, they'd be able to?
Yep, we'll link it on the new referendum website.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
The next slide is a glimpse for a few things to show kind of where that total need is by school. And on the middle and the far right column, it shows the total cost of the need by school and then the priority cost. In the best example I give when questions are asked, what's the difference, Aaron, between the total and the priority cost? The total cost is beyond its useful life and aged. We're fixing it. It works. Air conditioner works, but we get it maintained 3 times a year. Works, but it's 28 years old. Priority cost is it doesn't work. We're spending more than it's worth to fix, things like that. So these are some priority costs. So you can see total costs across those schools, 275 million, priority costs around 111 million. The next area of focus, as we talked about, is staff compensation. So this slide at the bottom shows you the comparison of 1st year, 5th year, 10th year, and 15-year plus teachers in our district to neighboring districts. We did a sample with Baird of about 18 districts in our area that are local to our school district and compared what does a 1st year teacher here make versus in Franklin? What is a 5th year versus New Berlin? And the reason you have to break it down by 1st, 5th, 10th, and 15th is that our average teacher year of service is not the same as what other districts are. So compare the average, you might be comparing a 7th year teacher here versus 12. Well, certainly I'd imagine a 12-year teacher makes more than a 7th. So you have to go by pulse points. So you can see an aggregate difference of 5 to 7%, which we just connected to in the budget hearing of difference of per pupil amounts in revenue. We finished this up. We discussed this. I just prefaced it here that we receive less per student than the regional average by about $500. That gap is essentially the gap we're asking for in an operating question to specifically pay our staff. So $4 million would go directly to pay our staff, the regional average, bring them up. Good question. Yep.
I think a good point about this is if we were following what other people were in the area.
Yep.
Right? If we were at 11,000 for the last 13 years, how much money has the community saved over that time by not paying that amount? So that's another thing I think that we should mention, like.
Sure.
You've all been given a discount for 13 years. Our teachers have been working at a discount for 13 years. And now we need to get the discount back to level so we can compete. And I think that's an important story to tell because it's not just about what we were asking for, but what we went without.
Right.
For all that time.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. Again, a kind of the mill rate piece, because again, a referendum impacts mill rate and it's good to know where are other districts. So you can see here in the state average in 22-23, the average mill rate was $7.68. We fell at 658, 14.3% below that last year. This slide, lots going on here. The highlights are for our district to ask a facility question at $50 million and an operating question at $4 million. The mill rate impact for something like that, given debt falling off, energy efficiency, and the Fund 80 levy being reduced back down to 3 million with the end of the West End recreation project. Sorry, hard to say that. The impact would be 61 cents, which would be $161 for $100,000 home, $122 for a $200,000 home, or $147 for an average $240,000 house in the West Dallas School District. That's per year. So that's what that would look like to accomplish two main district priorities. Okay, with that, that's the end of the recap, and we're going to shift into facility priorities and options. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of what does the agenda look like for this section of the presentation. The first thing I want to start off with is district facility priority needs. So from a district's perspective, what do we view as the needs of the district that we would say, hey, this is what we need to focus on right away? Okay. The next step is, again, how do we intend to narrow our focus? One, how do we narrow our facility scope? That's the projects. And two, how do we gather input? That's going to be short and long term. Tonight is the first step in gathering input. Number three, the facility questionnaire. I have a piece of paper too for people who don't want to take it online because we have people that would prefer that. So we'll have that out. And then the questionnaire is going to be used for the next 3-ish months to gather data. And then we'll report that back on the 22nd of January for the Board of Education workshop. And then the last thing is a quick conversation around what themes stood out to you when we take the survey and things of that nature. And then what other thoughts do you have around that? So from a district perspective, Steve and I have been working with both CG Schmidt, our vendors, and our internal team around like, where are we spending a lot of time and money, consistency, and, things that are, we had a roofing leak at Hale last, that's been an ongoing thing. We've been dealing with that since the cafeteria was built in 1999, Steve. Yeah. So, 24 years, right? So from our perspective, the most pressing needs of the district are HVAC, boilers, chillers, heating systems. They're old systems, ductwork, that you're looking at asbestos there too. I mean, things like that. They're consistent needs of the district, consistently what we spend a lot of time with custodians on. When things get cold, we get nervous. Got to make sure our schools are heated. Roofing, we have a roofing plan. We are consistently trying to restack the deck because things come up like it happened at Hale. And then now you spent X number of dollars to fix a problem because you can't replace the whole roof at Hale, right? So we're always restacking the deck. And then safety continues to be an area of focus. Certainly it's been over the last few years here. No different us versus any district across the country. What's that look like? Security cameras, analog to IP. That's been something we've spent a lot of time on. Our district installs those ourselves. We buy them. Our electrician installs those. And it's just an ongoing need, not something we're looking to not do. Absolutely not. Exterior doors, not just the doors, but it's the technology linked to the doors to provide access to the main office. When someone opens a door, the main office should know about it, right? So that's been an that's a huge cost, but the secondary schools certainly have the technology. We would look to include that and expand that to elementaries as well. We think it's a need everywhere. And then a district key system. Really the focus here is to have one provider update all of our district keys from an exterior perspective. And then Steve and I've talked about there's providers that do that where they're the only one within like 3 states that can provide you keys. And the key point here is that when you have that from a district perspective, like we have to go to the schools and go, which keys work at this school? It's like not from a safety perspective, the way to do it, but you can imagine a large upfront cost to do that. But, you know, to have like a set of master keys where we can have district facilities have those, upper administration have those. And then if something happens, you can quickly interchange them with one company. A lot of larger districts have gone to that because of these safety reasons, right? And to me, these are the needs that should be highly considered by both the board, the community, and the stakeholders alike. So the challenge, and I've been trying to figure out how to like talk about this, but the best example I have is imagine you and 50 people were up renovating a house that had everything was wrong with it, right? How would you build consensus? Well, Joe might want the kitchen redone. Brendan might say the basement needs to get renovated, but the roof leaks. So it's like building consensus through collaboration, through time. So that's what we're looking to do. So the biggest challenge is how do we narrow the focus with our group tonight, the community, our stakeholders, our internal staff. The plan tonight, we're going to model how we intend to do that with the different groups. And so the thing that Dr. Stewart and I have been talking about is, to get something we've never had, we have to do something different. And so through the plan, which Dr. Stewart will talk about in a few minutes, you're going to see different places where we intend to check in with stakeholder groups to start this idea of meeting with group people, even if it's 10 people. Dr. Robinson had a chance with myself to meet with the Lions group, talk with them. And he prefaced this conversation and you start, 8 or 9 people at a time. 8 or 9 people talk to 8 or 9 people and the web starts. And this is how you can get more movement because we've done things a certain way and certain groups haven't received the information and don't get the access to it. So trying to find different ways to communicate with people, reaching out first is kind of what you'll hear a lot of tonight. So that's kind of the plan. So how we intend to do that kind of long-term, again, tonight's the workshop. We're going to have stakeholder group sessions, which Dr. Stewart will talk about more from kind of October to the end, maybe January. And then from November to January, all along the way, we're going to have engagement sessions, broad community members can come, optional, encouraged, certainly. And then leading up to a January 22nd workshop where the goal of each one is to do 4 things: inform, us to you, engage, you to us, plan, and produce something for the next step, right? So when we get to tonight, it'll be to plan, to approve, to provide feedback around this process facility, and then certainly the communication plan. When we get to the 22nd, it's going to be to share, inform what we've learned, what we're hearing, data, for you to engage, for us to plan and produce the community survey that'll go to the families, right? So each step, each meeting should have that focus every time. And then certainly as you get beyond that, kicking the community survey off, future board workshops and reviewing engagement sessions and the actual community survey, right? And then certainly the rest is known about approving a resolution questions. Okay, so what we want to do now is I want us to take the survey. So you can preferably do that on your phone. And this survey will be used again for the next 3 months with stakeholder groups to take for us to get data. So and there's some groups here that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So I'm going to put this on the screen. I'm also going to hand out the paper copy.
Are people going to be able to do this at home? Or
Yes, it'll be on a postcard.
like right now? You see that's. Am I right?
Yeah. Cilantro is delicious. It's long.
You're in the right spot. Does anyone else see this? No, they're good. Here, Jane, try this one.
Yeah, mine doesn't, it's like,
Is it not a real QR code?
there we go.
It's,
That's
that computer doesn't have the Google ad.
Slido.com.
But you can go to slido.com and. Number, so sorry.
We'll update that for anyone watching for you to be able to engage, but the questions are on the next slide, so you'll be able to see them either way. But Kristen asked a good question. So how will families get this? So Amanda will talk through kind of the next steps of the communication, but they'll essentially get a postcard. And then this will go to every family. Obviously, the first step is going to be inviting them to this engagement session. So this survey will actually go more front facing towards the end, looking at around the week before Christmas, around that time, because we want people to come and engage in person.
Mhm.
And then this will go out, postcard, how to take a video with updating information, what's the board been hearing, and then the survey will also be sent on paper with a prepaid envelope. So families who go, hey, the Slido is confusing, certain people, certain groups, this might be more appealing. So trying to hit people where they're at, right? Okay, is there anything I need to do to launch the survey?
You said families?
Okay.
Only families that are, it's only, when you say families, do you mean just people who go to school here or?
Residents, all residents, community, whole community, yep.
Aaron, how do we know that people aren't gonna be like,
Oh, like, right, that's why I meant like the.
You are, no.
Well,
No, it's
that,
not.
this isn't live on the screen, I believe.
Oh, okay.
It is.
Oh, it is. Okay.
but I'm, what are the safeguards that's, someone doesn't like,
So last time we had,
go in here and
Code.
like.
you had
QR
used
code
to
and
put
then
in
they're
to
like,
take the
oh, just
survey.
keep, like. No, like,
So one survey, one person. sort of
Right,
thing.
so I think. What you're asking is the community survey will be one survey, one person.
What about this?
This one is more framed as a questionnaire that someone could potentially take it more than one time.
Okay. And we can certainly look into that too, but at this point, it's on
Just
that's
worry
where
about
it's-
stupid results, right?
Mhm.
You know, like
Yeah.
you get special interest groups, then all of a sudden.
Question, I
need
got a question.
Teachers in this one school only, or,
Yeah.
I understand we're gonna have
a bunch of
topics.
people went in and said, do you support an increase in property taxes? The first question, no,
Yeah.
I just don't want, yeah, exactly.
No
So,
times 1,000.
Well, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
People are.
Mhm.
Later.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario.
Okay, so should I click the next slide, Amanda?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. Okay, so the first question is, what would you support an increase in property taxes to improve school facilities? So as I click, they have access to vote.
It's just like the listening sessions if you haven't been there.
And we're gonna like click through the results because you guys will get to see in live time where everyone's at. We want to like go through them at the end, right? So once you feel like we're good, I'll go to the next one.
I only got 7.
Yeah,
And
'cause
and these questions,
Yeah, mine is not, mine isn't working, so.
Oh, you can go
we can
to,
wait.
Go to what?
just go right on the.
go to slido.com, you can put the code in.
I'm just gonna, I'll just.
She's doing papers.
Okay.
Slide on the floor.
Okay. Next question is, please indicate which grade levels you would support facilities improvements for.
And you can check more than one.
Yep.
And then click send.
And these questions, we're trying to make them very digestible, very understandable, very simple, short, to try to get people to really engage around what we're asking and why. Thumbs up if you're ready to go. Just get some informal here. Amy, you good?
I can't see Jeff.
Yeah.
Is Jeff doing this? Jeff's good. He's got thumbs up.
Okay, next question. This one might take some more time. Please circle your top 5 priorities from a facility referendum in terms of project scope. So as you can see, if you're looking at the options, each of the questions are branded from a project lens: safety, infrastructure, exterior, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, interior. And then there's more detail to follow, again, trying to appeal to digestibility of these questions. So infrastructure, parking lots; infrastructure, roofing; HVAC, boilers and heating; HVAC, air conditioning. You can see electrical, plumbing, technology, tech education classrooms, athletics, things of that nature, to try to get a focus from people of if I would support it, what are the things I want to focus on? And then there's an option for all facility upgrades for someone who maybe doesn't have a preference that would support any type of facility, you know.
You can also do it on the questionnaire if you want to see it before you go through this one.
Yeah. Yeah, the paper copy may be helpful.
Thank you. One time. I don't see the.
Yeah, they're not the same.
It doesn't show everything on the phone as it does on the paper.
Yeah, because it doesn't show.
Doesn't show the athletics or the tech ed.
Oh, it's not on there.
No, maybe do that one on the paper.
No, yeah.
Because of course, there's one on there that I definitely.
And if you have different answers, you can fill it out on the paper and then we can update them and put them in.
Okay.
Which one is it? I got it. Oh, okay. Yeah. You can get that fixed though, right? So that all of them show.
Yeah, we can fix that. Yeah, that's easy. Yeah. If you can, maybe tonight before we're done, just fill out the paper copy and then we'll update all of your information in the system. We can wipe it and redo it. That way it's accurate and clean. Okay, next question, or should I wait a few more seconds? Yes. Next question is, would you support increasing our teachers' salaries to be comparable to neighboring school districts if it meant an increase in your property taxes school portion? Simple yes or no. Bridget.
I'm not sure if this would be an appropriate time, but just throwing this out here so you know how like you're talking about, oh, we need to upgrade our schools and then you gave us specifics. I feel the same need for teacher. So,
Sure.
Would you want to give them raises? Absolutely. But what would that look like?
Mhm.
Would you, would it be for our new teachers? Would it be to level out the middle? Like, I feel like I would need more information on that.
Sure.
Is it going to be for roofs or is it going to be for safety?
Mhm.
I feel like just a little bit more.
Sure. You can do that, yeah.
Because I don't know. What does that mean? We're going to help, it's going to help with compensation, $4 million.
Mhm.
That's, to me, it doesn't even seem like a lot of money.
Mhm.
What will we do with that?
Oh, Jane said she's gonna match it. The whole rate now.
You know what I mean? I guess
Yeah.
I would want to know, well, how are you going to divide that money and
Yeah.
how?
Yeah, the best answer is to go back to the regional slide average of salaries versus the region. So staff across the board are between 5 to 7%. So it doesn't really matter who you're targeting. The whole group is underpaid based on the whole region.
So everybody,
That is the current plan.
We need to balance out everyone.
Everyone. There's not one group that's, everyone across the board is below the regional average. Now, there's certain pockets where it's more and less.
okay.
But-
So it would be across the board.
That's
Because she's.
that's based on current practice. That's how we've handled things like that. So that would be consistent, at least from a district's perspective. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I presume that. Yes, we worked in context with the compensation plan that we're also looking at.
Yeah, the comp model is certainly going to be developed in future months and years, but yes, it would certainly align more closely to what a model would look like that would keep people at the regional average. So the thinking here is a referendum is going to take people that are currently working for us and pay them accordingly to the regional average. The comp model brings people in and moves people up. So if we can move current staff that work here and have worked here for 20 years to the regional average, and then each year in our budget, we align with what current CPI is, we're going to maintain. And then when the comp model gets developed and, funded, things like that, then when you bring people in and existing staff should maintain or exceed. That's the goal, right? To maintain or exceed. So the current model is, loading whiteboard. What's that, Amanda? No? Not sure what that is.
Just to check all this.
Certainly that's the plan. So,
Okay,
yeah, kind of a long answer. Sorry, Jen. Yeah.
I needed to hear that again,
Yeah.
obviously, and if I needed to hear that,
Check.
community will need to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Because I think that would be really important. I
Mhm.
think that, all schools will benefit from this, all staff will
Mhm.
benefit, or teachers.
Yeah.
So,
I think in the questionnaire piece, it makes sense just to ask, would you support it? Yes or no? Because if they're a no, it doesn't matter what it's for.
Mhm.
Like if they're like, yes, I would for these specific ones, but that's from a later survey to
Yeah.
talk about when we kind of figure out, okay, this is how much money we're gonna ask for and how we're gonna use that money.
Yeah.
And that has to be very specifically enumerated
and-
in any questions that we ask on the ballot.
And that's why you see here, you don't see amounts. We want to know, is there support for the projects? And then later we can garnish based on this last question. What's the appetite for a tax increase for each person based on their home value? So the last slide here. You should be able to see a table in which it says, based on your home value below, how much of a total property tax increase would you support to help our facilities and increase our teacher salaries to be comparable with neighboring school districts? So this gives people an option to go like, well, I do support it, but like, if it's too much, I don't support it. Well, if I do support it, how much am I willing to support? Because then we have the ability to go, what percent selected option 1, option 2, option 3. We get to start to get a sense of like, what's the sweet spot? And then we get a chance to start to communicate. Maybe we can move you from 2 to 3. Maybe we can't. Right? Because if you're at a 5 and we ask for 3, I'd imagine you'd support it. That's less than you're willing to support, So you get a sweet spot. So selection 6 is where the last referendum landed with the high school.
So you want us to pick one?
Pick one.
Right.
Okay,
Pick one.
do you realize that you can put more than one?
Yep, that's okay too.
I'm just telling
Mhm.
letting you know
Yep.
as we're doing this, because
it says, please circle which option 1 through 7.
I get that.
You can click more. So someone could go, I would support 2, 3, 4. That's okay.
That messes your percentages up.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's
So I
why I'm
think
thinking
you
maybe you
should
should
pick-
block it where you can only pick one.
Pick
and
one.
Pick a different one to get the.
We select.
Or it's like, I would do this or below,
Mhm.
like, so then you know that it's here.
To this amount.
I would do
Yeah, it
up
says
to-
how much of a total property, so I would
Yep.
think whatever they put, it would
Yeah.
kind
But
of be
if you could pick-
inferred.
Well, I would do
up
0, I
that
would
amount.
do this and
Yeah,
this.
but the
then you
ability
go
to
by
select one
percentage.
option, yeah.
Yeah.
This is good feedback. This is why we're doing this tonight. Yep.
Because that way then your percentages will at
Circle.
least be accurate by how.
Yeah.
One option.
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, and the idea here is like, if we get feedback that 3 or 4 are likely, you have to go, well, what was the percent at 4? What was the percent at 5? What was the right? So the goal might be to try to get 65%. We can look at that together and go 4 and above, 65%. That might be the thinking, right? Maybe it's 50, right? That's risky, right? So you can start to have conversations and considerations, but then obviously the amount shifts what you ask. But currently the 61 cents lands in option 4. So right in the middle, trying to get a sense of where people are at, right? So
And just for people watching, this is just
I look like
us playing with the
10%.
questionnaire. It's not the set in stone, so whatever the community.
Yep.
Puts out there is what we're gonna listen to.
absolutely, absolutely. So that is the end of that.
Is there any consideration to having a fact sheet? Like before people get to this survey, like let's all start with the same understanding of where we are now.
Yeah, so we've talked about having, so when someone receives this, they would receive a postcard. We've talked about this real high level at this point. This would be like middle December, so we still have a few months. People would get a postcard, and the postcard would have like a QR code or some information, like a fact sheet, where they could either scan to a video, like explanation, what's happening, what does this postcard mean? What's the information on the referendum? How much would it cost you, et cetera, et cetera. The other side of that would be the actual, what you guys are doing right on your phone. For the people who want to do it online. That would also come with this prepaid envelope, and maybe that video is into like fax. Maybe it's stapled. I don't know. We haven't got that far yet, but this is like currently the thinking higher level what we're planning to do.
What kind of myths can we dispel before we have people coming in with this huge perception of what we actually are, where we stand?
Maybe it comes with like a half page facts, half page FAQ. I mean, something that, we tried not to make this 2 pages. 2 pages people might throw away.
Yeah.
1 page, try to be readable. I mean, things like that are going to come into play. So we'll have to like work through iterations.
Spell a lot of the conspiracy theories and untruths,
Yeah.
that will come. So I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. And especially if someone's like throwing out stuff online that isn't true, then someone could send a picture of, this is the FAQ I got. Did you get this?
Right.
This says that question's not correct. I don't know. That's a good point. Yeah.
Respond with, for sure.
So we don't have the results because we got to fix the survey a bit, but are there any, I was thinking about having like a norming discussion tonight. Are there any things that like things that stand out to you, I guess, like process questions? This is the time for the facility portion. This is kind of the end. Anything you wish you
From
would
the
see?
results. Oh.
Yeah, well, we don't have the results because the survey is skewed because there's missing pieces there. So more of like process, kind of next steps with facilities. Any questions or feedback on that?
Next steps on facilities. I'm not sure what you're asking.
Like around the survey questions, like next steps with facilities, meeting with stakeholders, things like that. Are there any questions on that?
Okay, so. All right, so I want to say this. We as a board, we've decided, I feel like, one of our non-negotiables is that we want to give this referendum for all our schools. We want this to touch every school. And I think that's something that we have decided. And I think it's something that I would stand behind and I would really want. And so when you put that on there, when you put this question on there, please indicate which grade levels you would support. If we're noticing that everybody just wants to do the elementaries. I feel like we would take that data, but we wouldn't agree with that data, so.
Sure.
Like, I don't feel that should be an option. I feel we should be putting a referendum out there that says. Yes, we want to do this referendum and it is going to touch every school,
Sure.
period. So that should be an already.
Well, and especially because at the listening and learning sessions.
Yeah.
Those are things we talked about.
Right.
Yeah.
Is at each school.
Sure.
So I think that kind of should just be eliminated, because I think it is already an assumed thing that is going to touch
Yeah.
at every school.
Then
Because
everyone
it is
gets
something that we talk about, that has been brought up, whether it's Dr. Robinson bringing it up or it's automatically being brought up by parents, it's
Sure.
like the swimming pool at West Milwaukee or the bathrooms at Frank Lloyd Wright or whatever, like it's kind of already being brought up. So I think it is assumed it's going to be across the board.
Sure.
So I think that actually would it's going to ruffle feathers.
Right, and so, when we get data from the community, and if they did say a lot of, we only want to work on the middle schools, then we wouldn't be honoring that, we'd be saying, oh, look at the data is showing us this, but we've made the commitment to improve every school.
Brian?
I'm listening to what you're saying, and for the most part, I agree.
Yeah.
But there's a part of me that's like, okay, well, then why are we asking them? You know what I mean? Because if the data is telling us something else, if all of a sudden the community comes back and says, okay, I know you told us this, but we're actually only going to support this as a community, then we almost have to look at that data. So I get it. I mean, as a board, yes, we want it to touch every school. We think that's what should be done. But if we're going to ask the community, I almost feel like we need to provide those options. Because if they're telling us something different, then it's great what we want. But at the same time, if the community wants something different.
But at every
And I don't
level.
necessarily know that that's going to happen.
But at every
I think-
level, we've heard that there's issues at every school.
And I understand.
Yeah.
I completely agree with
Yeah.
that. But I'm just, if we're going to ask the community, then we should be asking the community.
That's what I'm saying. We just need to get rid of that question.
Right, I don't think the community.
I think we need to omit that question.
Every one of our schools needs work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the
how
buildings
do you-
are average of
I mean, how do we
85
even
years old.
Start to
Yeah.
even say like, well,
And I agree.
and yeah. And I think it also can be hard because you also have to look at who's, I mean, again, I'm not saying skewing the results, but who's gonna respond to some of these? Okay, so I'm just thinking elementary school parents, families, I feel like might respond more on this. And so, again, it's figuring out looking at balancing out the data as to, who our respondents are,
Right.
as opposed to, there's a lot of, obviously different ways of looking at data, but that's one of the things I worry about is that more involved parents, where we see kind of that drop off in that middle school, high school, are we going to get, just a handful of parents from the high school level that we're getting feedback from, or are we actually getting, so because elementary school, obviously you're all going to be like, yeah, click, I want my elementary, I want my,
You've been like several years in a project,
So I,
Right. And if they can fill it out more than once and, all those things. Can be
Yeah.
played.
and we can certainly look at that, but I certainly value the feedback and I do view it a little different. I view this as a pulse check on the community. And I view if everyone says what you think, Ms. Carr, that they want the elementary, I view that we have some work to do to communicate out. Because it's better for us to know what they're saying and us to work on that than us to not know and go blind.
Yeah, and because this is just a questionnaire, I'm comfortable with that. But I just,
It's, but again, this is a discussion. This is the point. This is the point.
It's not your vision.
Yep.
I don't think it's misleading, but I think that the third question, I think, is the most important question.
Yeah.
Because it tells people, no matter what they picked in question 2, what they think needs to be fixed in question 3. And so that feedback, I think, is the most valuable, because even if I really wanted it only in elementary schools for some reason, but they're still at least going to fix the thing that I was interested in getting fixed or being addressed. I still think that person would support it if we're at a price point that they were also willing to support. So I think that's the question 3 for me is the one that I'm the most interested in. Where does the community see where the money should be spent if we get money to spend? And then where that is, I think that when we're talking as a board, that's when we're talking about equity. That's when we're talking about being able to provide updates and better building supports for as many students as we can touch at the same time. Before I go to you, Brian. Yeah. Mr. Burns had his hand up.
Oh.
Oh, we forgot. Okay, no,
I didn't forget. At the end of the day, this referendum is, we're looking to get how for facilities, we're looking at
50 million project at this point.
and
Yeah.
our priority costs are 111 million. So even realistically, if we want to try and touch everything, that may not be possible with this referendum because of essentially the small amount compared to the large. This might be more of a prioritization rather than we're not going to do your school at all or your interest at all.
Certainly. So to kind of go through, I think you're saying, so like, we wouldn't be able to touch all the facility needs in question 3. But if the feedback was district wide or not, and then we had to figure out how to communicate that around, like, these are the needs at certain schools have different priority needs. Certain schools may have HVAC priority needs and the next school may have plumbing issues. So like, that's why it's 5, because not every school has roofing issues. Some schools have major roofing issues, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's just, I think too, we have to be realistic as we're looking at this and wanting our whole district to be fixed, that there's a limit. So even with what we're doing, there's a limit.
Yeah.
So
The message to me is we're chipping away at the needs. Working through them, and then we'll be back because we have needs and we're trying to work through them, and we're being fiscally conservative and trying to keep in mind the levy. These are the talking points about,
Right, okay, so just a better way to say what I was trying to say before, because I feel like I missed it. As a board, we've identified that we have issues across all of our schools. As a board, we support touching all of our schools. But as a board, because we've recognized these needs, our goal is to have a referendum that will pass from our community. So as such, I would feel that eliminating those questions or those options could be viewed as us pushing an agenda or a narrative of what we want, as opposed to getting the appropriate feedback. So again, it's a survey just to check the pulse of what everybody's thinking. I think everybody's going to kind of agree, but I think it's important to get that pulse check to tell us exactly where we're at. Because then again, to Mr. Burns' point, there's still going to be some hard decisions that we're going to have to make depending on what happens and what gets approved. So I think it's important to collect as much data as possible early on so that we can't be accused later of pushing a narrative or an agenda that we feel is appropriate for the district without getting all that data.
Yeah, so it's a questionnaire. This is a starting point. It's not the official survey. And so that's not important piece to understand. I'm still gonna say that even on this, if we can like record IP addresses or something, because I think that,
Yes, I do agree.
you know, because this is a starting point and we want this data to be as good as possible. But if everyone can exit 1,000 times or send it to their relatives in, you know, New Mexico to fill out, I think that it's important that we want the data to be as much as possible accurate. So that when we're moving forward with these decisions, as we move through this process, that we're confident that the first step was not flawed in the process.
Right.
So other than that, I agree with what Brian is saying in regards, I think I'm fine leaving. If people want to pick high school or something, because I only have kids in high school now, that's all they care about. Okay, fine, let them do it. What do they think needs to be fixed in the high school?
Yeah.
And how much money are they willing to put towards it? Those are the things I want to know.
And then we get a chance in January to analyze the results and pivot messaging.
Exactly.
So if you see 20% district, a third high school, a third middle school, a third elementary, sounds like we're split. Sounds like we're doing district wide. I mean,
Exactly.
it may just itself lend to be that, but we get a chance to like have the conversation, dive deeper with the groups, ask more questions. Like it's good for us to know how to like work with people on that. Sounds like you're saying $5 is good. Why not 6? Like we know a little bit more. I don't know, just a thought. So
To that point, are we going to collect data when we're doing the survey? I didn't see it today in terms of, hey, do you have students in the district? And if so, at what level are they? Because that will help show us some of that data. If we're clearly getting parents who have high school students saying, oh yeah, I only care about the high school, that'll be another data point that we'll have to kind of see why that might.
Demographic data.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. So school perceptions, the survey for them will be more in depth and include all of that. This is again, just 5 questions, pulse check, where are people at? Let's get some feedback. This helps get the word out too. I mean, there's a couple of different ideas here. I'm not sure if,
Mr. Burns?
There's 2 number 2s in question 3 as well.
oh, good catch. Thank you. That's what we have for facilities. So I think we now will turn to communications and Amanda can take us away.
Yes. All right, so as we start to think about how to message all of these pieces and over the course of the next 13 months, I want to start off because I know it's a long evening with kind of a humorous example of what perhaps miscommunication could look like. I think often in our communications about the game of telephone. So this is kind of an exaggerated example of that. And you can skip the first minute. It's about 2 minutes long.
Oh, okay, let's do it. Audio work too.
Said, say what when they found out his DJ equipment was fake? Put your hands together for Twitch. All right. This game is a little like the game of telephone. You'll be wearing noise-canceling headphones. I will read a sentence to Nicole, who will pass it down the line. When Twitch gets a sentence, he will tell me what he heard. Okay. Put on your
Headsets.
Headphones. Listen to some music.
They started the music.
Thanks. All right.
We're supposed to look this way. Twitch, we gotta look there. Ellen said we gotta look there.
Wait, can I hear? Can I hear? Justin Bieber's pet beaver chewed.
Did you do it already? Did you do it?
Okay.
Turn around.
Justin
Turn
Bieber's
around.
pet beaver chewed the chairs inside.
No,
She's gonna
it's
give
not
it
allowed
to
to
you.
see.
She's gonna give it to you.
Andy.
This is not airing.
Andy.
You.
Now?
Hey.
Okay.
Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber
beautiful, beautiful tune in the following week.
Justin Bieber has a beautiful tooth. Justin Bieber has a beautiful tooth, but he's also weak.
All right, Dave, let's go.
Justin
Wait, whoa.
Justin Bieber
Wait, whoa. Tell me when you're starting. Right?
has a blue sweatshirt.
Where do I go from here?
All right,
All right.
take your head.
The correct information, and especially with heading into this referendum, we want to make sure that all of our information is clear, concise, correct, and that people know where to go. They know where to turn to get that correct information, that it's accessible. So just kind of keeping that in mind, I thought that that clip was kind of a humorous way of drawing attention to how truly crucial it is and how messaging can get confused. And as we're working to shift the narrative and tell our own story and focus on the work that's happening in our district, it's just always so important that that information is clear, concise, and correct. So making sure everyone has the correct information, the information that they need at the correct time, you'll kind of hear that as a theme throughout this portion of the communications plan. So these key phrases should be nothing new, nothing that you haven't seen before. So I tried to identify some phrases that I hear often, that hopefully you all hear often, that Dr. Robinson says often. And I hope that by the end of the next 13 months, people are truly sick of hearing us say these same things. I think that this list will grow, this list of key phrases, but our key messages and the consistency around them is so important so that our community knows the messages that we're sending, so that our students deserve the best, that our teachers deserve to be compensated at regionally competitive levels, that our buildings are old, that we're striving for academic excellence, that, like we just talked about, this referendum would chip away at our needs, but that we have a significant amount of needs in our aging buildings. And that our commitment now and beyond this referendum period is to seek opportunities to engage with our stakeholders and make sure that everyone is informed about the work happening in our schools. So as we go through these communications and marketing phases, there's 4 of them. And the first 2 for sure are a lot more flushed out and in depth as we're kind of building the plane and flying it. And then as we get more into late spring, summer, we'll kind of be continuing to build those phases together. They are marked kind of generally by groups of months. So we will start with trust building. So trust building is what I've kind of identified to be this first period of the groundwork that we've already been laying. We had a new superintendent transition in, which was a natural period of trust building since July 1st. And we've been doing all of these pieces to build trust with our community and truly lay that foundation. So a few years ago, I read an article about these core drivers of trust: authenticity, logic, and empathy. And I truly feel that this is what we have been doing since July 1st. So authenticity, meaning, does your audience feel like they get the real you? Logic, do they feel like you are trustworthy in the information that you're providing them? And then empathy, do you care? And so the things that we've been doing since July 1st really hit those 3 core drivers of trust. And generally, when trust falls apart, you can point back to one of these things and identify where something could have gone wrong. So I feel confident about this first phase and these core drivers that we've been laying. So another way that you're probably familiar of thinking about trust is this emotional bank account. So the things that we've been doing, the listening and learning sessions, the implementation of Let's Talk, the increased communication from Dr. Robinson in a Friday newsletter. Those have all been deposits in this trust bank account that I truly see as the first piece of this referendum communications plan as we've been laying that foundation. So let's talk. Let's Talk in general is a trust building tool. And I include it in this referendum communications plan because we've now added a November 24 topic under district office. So anyone can submit any question that they have and ensure that they have access to correct information and that they get a rapid response. I think that this is going to be really important because it takes away, just like Let's Talk is doing in other areas, it takes away that initial barrier of, I don't know where to go for information. I don't want to navigate a website. I don't want to come to a board meeting, whatever the excuse may be. This is a place where they can quickly share their feedback, concerns, ideas right on our website. So as we head into November and we're continuing this trust building phase, laying this foundation to sustain the message of our future referendum. So up until this board workshop, the conversations around our educators being compensated at regional and competitive levels and conversations about our buildings have just been coming up naturally in listening and learning sessions, in the way Dr. Robinson talks about his 3 A's, as we've been visiting and being more present in the community at places like Women's Club and Rotary. So we'll continue to lay that foundation. And now we've built that first layer of trust, hopefully, and we'll continue to with our community. The other thing about this trust building phase is that it doesn't stop as we enter the next phase. This is a new era of being able to be present in our community and show them that we're listening truly. So to wrap up this trust building phase, there was a few kind of deliverables that I wanted to point out. One being this first postcard. So Erin and I have talked about with that questionnaire, the first postcard, which we're going to get out in the next couple of days, that main call to action of that postcard is going to be to attend a fall engagement session. So that postcard's pure message will be like, we want to hear from you. Please come to one of these sessions. Then at those engagement sessions, we'll be there to inform about this process, engage, listen, and facilitate them completing the questionnaire. And then, like Erin mentioned, we could follow up with another mailer with the questionnaire. But I do want to stress that our number one goal is to get people in person and be able to engage with them with that first postcard. So I have a few other dates coming up in November for our first fall engagement session, more newsletter opportunities. We talked about the Let's Talk topic. So those are kind of the deliverables out of this first phase. All right, so then we enter into the inform and engage marketing phase. So we're looking winter, early spring.
Sorry.
No, you're good. We're continuing to build on that layer of trust and get more opportunities to sit with people, to sit in front of people, to share our process, but more importantly, listen to what they have to say with these 3 engagement sessions, with continued meetings with high stakeholder groups, and continue to grow that list of groups. So we've been working this fall on identifying a really long list of community organizations that we want to have a presence at. And this next phase builds on, it doesn't mean that's the last time that we go to Women's Club. We continue to show up in these spaces, build on that trust, and share information. We also, coming out of listening and learning sessions, are going to be hosting, well, Dr. Robinson will be hosting coffee with the superintendent at some local coffee shops. So just continuing to provide opportunities to engage with the community. So this is very tiny, but I hope that all of you feel comfortable in sharing and continuing to recommend to us what groups and community meetings we should continue to have a presence at. This list includes internal, like making sure our leadership team, all district staff are informed. And then it also includes a lot of external community organizations, places that we can be present, like perhaps at the farmer's market this spring and summer. So we're really focused on building that list and building these relationships.
And please, as Amanda said, please share. This is about building together, similar to facilities. Like this is about like working together to build this plan. So appreciate any feedback you have.
I would even add on there the owners of Capri and Reunion, because they're pretty.
But just email us.
Yeah.
Yeah, just email me that. Mhm,
Yeah.
For peanuts.
mhm.
Unions.
What was it? Oh, unions?
Unions.
Yep.
So we have several large unions located in our district that not just teacher unions. I'm talking about like UAW, not UAW, electrical, like there's a lot of unions based in our community that I think if we were able to provide them this information, that they talk in the union members listen to their union leadership.
Yeah.
So I think that if you can provide that information to them and the union is in support of it, they can communicate that out on our behalf.
Yeah.
So that's another one that I know has been brought in the past for partnerships within the district, but I think also for helping with these sorts of things would be a good idea. And some of them may not be located in our district, but they serve members within our district.
Sure.
So, I mean, I know they provide like information on who to vote for certain things.
Sure.
Not that they would do that, and I know we can't ask for that.
Yeah.
But we can provide the information, and then they can make the decision about whether they think that your member should support it or not.
Definitely. All right, so as we continue to provide opportunities for people to come and engage, we've identified 3 community engagement sessions coming up in November and December. The goal of these, like we've already talked about, will be to engage with them in the discussion around our facility needs, facilitate the questionnaire, but really like spend time with these people and help them to feel as informed as they can be, and then hopefully tell others. So these are going to come up really quickly, which is why we've started designing the postcard, and that main postcard 1 will be all about getting people present at these, which we know can be challenging, but we are committed. And I think that they'll come after the listening and learning sessions, which have generated some more momentum in people showing up to engage with us. Yeah.
What is your plan, or what do you feel is going to be included at these
Yeah.
engagement sessions? So like you mentioned something about the survey or the questionnaire. Is there a formal presentation that's going to be happening? Who's giving that presentation? Do we have any more information on that?
Great question.
Sure. So at this point, our internal team will be leading the presentations, and we're looking at, again, it's an hour. So we're looking at 15 to 20 minutes of informing, 15 to 20 minutes of engagement, 2-way conversation, similar structure to listening and learning, and then a time for the survey and other questions to be, I guess, asked and responded to, similar to that. But again, it's to inform, to hear what they're saying, and to give them an avenue to, like, I guess, submit their information for that data to be recorded.
Okay, right.
So I don't need an answer to this now, but a question that I'm anticipating is, okay, so with these numbers, you say we're chipping away at the facility needs in our district. So what's next? How are we going to address those other needs? So again, I don't need an answer now, but I think that's going to be something that members of the community are going to want some type of, even if it's a draft, I shouldn't even say a draft, some type of idea of what that's going to look like in the future. Because it's like, okay, you're asking me for money now, but you're telling me it's not going to take care of everything. So they're going to want a little bit of idea.
Sure.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
All right, yep. Okay, so up until this point, we've really focused on informing from a logic, data, numbers perspective. So I kind of think of that as informing the head. And this video series that we are excited about is going to more inform through the heart. So these will be stories of our people in our district students, staff, community members, and we're going to produce 5 high-quality videos prompting these individuals to answer questions like, what do you love about our district? What gets you up in the morning? How has school changed since you were in school? And why do you stay in our district? So really general, like these are questions and we could use this content every day of every year. But this is really to help people to understand and to humanize our, not only our needs, but our story of the great work that our students are doing and our teachers, and kind of just center it back around our people. So no.
So I like those videos. But whatever we decide on, whatever things that we're talking about in here, we need videos of that too. I want to see the 28-year-old chiller. I want to see the cracks in the parking lot. I want to see the boiler that's got 15 patches on it so that it's still operating. Right? Those, like, the feel-good stories are good for the feel-good people, but there's been something like, I don't believe you. Like, you got a brand new boiler in there. You're just gonna use this on something else you don't need. Show the crappy stuff that we're dealing with in our schools that's working barely. And have that as like maybe something that's included on the main page. These are the things that we're trying to address, and just have like a, and you have, whatever school it's from, here's the thing that, this is one thing that we would look to address with this referendum. Here's the leaking roof and hail and the water dripping down. Like, these are the things that are showing people, like, these are the real needs, not just like wish list things to be thinking will look nice. It's like literally like this difference between holding school here and having to cancel classes when we get a cold snap and the boiler blows, but we can't get somebody in right away to fix it. That's the sort of stuff I think that also needs to be included in this, to show the true need. Because something on paper, just like, well, show me that need. And I think that's going to get a different group of people to be like, oh, okay, I see that. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. That's not good. You should probably replace that.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for that. And we should capture video of that for sure. And we have brainstormed that in spring engagement sessions, offering building tours. And really like showing that in that.
We've also been in contact with the gentleman from the newspaper. And so trying to figure out how to craft that particular conversation is what we're working through. He's canceled on us a couple of times because things are more priority, we get bogged down.
Sure.
But that's been a conversation, but we also are trying to gauge, like, media can put things out there, and once it gets out there, it's hard to get it back. And so once an article is written or a story is done, we have limited control over how it looks. So that's been something we've been kind of toying with, and how that looks. So, but that has been a discussion.
And I don't necessarily mean through media. I just mean us.
No, I'm just saying that's been a thought. We're gonna expose and be very honest and transparent about what our needs are, and where what the upgrades would be. And I think, again, once the spring occurs, we'll have that better identifier. Right now, we're not in a place where that.
Sure. I just wanted to mention it because I think that puts a real visual into people's minds about the things that are going to be updated, the differences that could be achieved. And then always connecting that back to achievement. It's the other thing that people would say, well, your district's doing so poorly, why do I want to put money into it, right? Well, these things can affect achievement, and this is how. So I think that's the other thing we have to make sure to connect in, is that achievement piece of how we think replacing a roof or replacing a boiler is going to help my kid do better on that next test, or help my kid be able to pay attention more in the classroom with their teacher. So that's the stuff that's how you work that all together. Overall, we want kids to do better. How does this work, right? Because we're doing smart boards everywhere, or if you're redoing classrooms so that they're 21st century, it's easy to say, yes, this is going to help with achievement. It's harder to say that when you're talking about mechanicals and plumbing.
Yeah, thanks. So as we enter early spring, these are some of the deliverables out of the Inform and Engage phase. So we'll have the fall engagement sessions complete. We'll be starting to look at prep for the community survey with school perceptions. We'll be producing videos and a postcard / mailer too with the questionnaire like we've talked about. We'll be back for board workshop 3. And we'll continue to update our website to reflect what we're learning from our community as we go through this process. So that takes us truly to a produce and plan phase into spring and early summer, where we'll start to work even more closely with our community on making sure that they understand the community survey, when they'll be getting it, what it will look like. And then we'll host spring engagement sessions strategically during that survey window to invite people to come in and learn and fill out the survey in the most informed way that they can.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Yep. No, you're good.
Yep.
And then also during this produce and plan phase, we will be continuing to produce our videos. We'll start looking ahead at other important community events to have a presence at, and making sure that we're not forgetting about our internal audience too during this survey window time, and really seeing them as our champions for our kids and our teachers. And then into summer and fall, we've brainstormed a variety of different community ideas. We've talked about involving our school communities. We've looked at the local calendars to see which community events we should be a part of. And we've explored door hangers, additional postcards about how and when to vote, early voting, not being surprised by that. So that starts September 19th, Erin and I learned this week. So we're really trying to take a big step back and make sure that like some of those key moments we're identifying early. And then at your leisure, there's an example of kind of an animated school funding explainer video that we're looking at recreating for our district that could be helpful in helping people just understand school finance and what this truly looks like, and then what it means for them as a taxpayer. So a quick revisit of our goals, which Erin already went through, but this communications plan is truly centered around telling our own story and inviting our community to be a part of that. And a successful referendum campaign will be an added benefit to re-engaging with our community around our needs and continuing to build on that trust.
The postcards coming out, will they be a Spanish option?
That is a great question. Yes.
Because our Spanish, our foreign language team here, our world language team was like, we really at least have to get all of our stuff in at least Spanish.
For
So,
sure.
you know, their voice is incredibly important.
It's a great suggestion, Kristen. Thank you. So,
Can we have some means for someone, if someone has a different language besides Spanish, that they would like to get information, that they could request it somehow?
mhm,
Like maybe it might be through their student, but you know, we have so many different languages in our district.
mhm.
I don't want anyone to feel like they're left out because we don't have it in Albanian, or we don't have it in, you know, Hmong or something like that, and then they can't feel informed about it. I don't want people to feel excluded. I'm not expecting we produce it in all those different languages, but have a means to say, hey, I need it in this, and then we have a way to translate certain materials for that individual and give it to them.
Yeah, we are adding more languages to Let's Talk. So in the next week, we should have additional languages other than just Spanish there.
Okay.
So that could be one avenue that a family could engage with us in a language outside of Spanish. But we'll continue to explore that. Yeah.
Great feedback. Thank you.
All right, so we are kind of wrapping up the communications plan and all the 4 different phases, and we wanted to share a quick video.
Hi, my name is Roman. I am in 3rd grade.
I'm Rebecca.
I'm Brett.
My name is Dr. Lee Breeze.
Hi, I'm Malcolm. I'm in 5th grade.
That everybody gets to be respectful to other people.
I like that we work hard and we're helpful to others and kind to others.
At Docky, all of our learning is pretty much project related, so I can go off and do my own thing and go dive really deep into a topic while still hitting all the content standards.
I love the lunch. The lunches are good.
I have 3 children who graduated from West Dallas school system. I was so impressed because they were all so well prepared that I also
am blessed with 3 children who have graduate degrees from their respective schools.
The diversity and the different families that my kids get to witness and be a part of.
How much effort you put in?
They learn a lot of wonderful things. They have good stories and great memories.
I love the community in this school. It's very tight-knit. Everybody knows everybody. All the teachers are helpful. Just stuff like that. I like math.
And the opportunity to watch our children grow in this community. So we feel like we've had really great engagement on that level with our kids, and we're seeing that from the staff now.
West Dallas schools really were an important part of our lives because they impacted our family life on a daily basis and on a lifetime basis too.
Hi, my name is Roman.
Any prep time, they were just grabbed in hallways or at listening to learning sessions or at Rotary. And we thought it was really powerful how many times they used the word "our" when they talked about the impact on our family life. Our community, our learning is project-based. So that brings us to our referendum slogan of our students, our schools, our communities, our district, our West Way.
I like that.
Questions?
Questions from the board?
Could we get like Facebook cover page logos for this? Cause I know a lot of us who are on Facebook. Let's just get that out there and make it our cover.
You bet. Great idea.
Yeah, and then I think in general for board member engagement, is there certain things that you want to make sure that we're posting about in our social media and talking about when we're talking with people? I think having some talking points and or some prepared materials that we all have access to so that we can have that readily available if we get phone calls or stopped at a grocery store or Target or whatever, that we would be able to have that information and then quickly direct people to where they can find out more in-depth information. I definitely think like every time we're having something that's getting posted on the district page, we can post that on our pages too. And like, that's part of what we as board members should be doing, every one of us, to ensure that we're doing as much as we can to get it out, because even though a lot of us might be in similar areas of social media, some of us are not. And so I think that you never know what person is going to see that only on your stuff and or know you personally to be able to say, yes, I want to ask that question about you, but otherwise I have no clue about it. So I'm not saying right now, but as we move through this process to ensure that we as a board can be fully engaged in providing that information as well as another avenue to get that information out to people.
Great suggestion. Yep, definitely.
So someone with a hand raised, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, it was me. For any of the things where we have dates where we want community and again for this postcard that's coming out. And if it has a QR code to anything, or if it's digitally anywhere, can we get actual invites, like links to invites, so you can click on it? It adds it to your calendar, so you don't have to think about it. And I say that because I know for the longest time I was the person I was like, oh yeah, I should go to that, and then that went in the trash, and then I forgot about it because I didn't actually add anything to the calendar. So if we have actual something that says, oh, add this to your calendar, then when it's coming up, it's like, oh yeah, hey, this is coming up. It might be that mindless and it goes away and not engaging.
No, it's not right.
Yeah,
Yeah, good suggestion.
I just want to say this feels much more secure and much more planned out than the last referendum, and I appreciate that because I think we have a much better idea of what we're going into and how at least we're going to tell the story and our why. And like not even the story, it's like what we need as a district. So I know this is a ton of work. So I just want to say huge thank you and appreciation to everyone working on this.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, no, I'm just scratching my forehead.
Jeff, do you have anything you wanted to add, input? Nope, he says everything looks fantastic. He couldn't have done it better himself and he looking forward to the next steps. Anyone else? So our first session, our first engagement, community engagement session on this is November 16th here from 6 to 7:30 PM. I just want to say that because we have never. 6 to 7, oh, not 7:30.
7.
6 to 7, all right. And so I just want people who are watching this now to get that on their calendar if they want to participate. That's the first one. You'll have multiple opportunities. You can come to all three if you want. You will not be turned away. We want to hear from you. We want you to understand and ask the questions, get the answers that you need to have informed decisions on this as we move forward. And so we are over a year out. And I don't want any excuses about not understanding what we're doing and why we're doing it. Okay. So anything else? So we talk about this next in January, besides with the community engagement sessions, but really we're not talking about this formally again until January. And the postcards are coming out
Next week.
So
Yeah.
people should expect every person in the community in our district
Correct.
should be getting a postcard with a QR code to be able to take the questionnaire or.
Postcard 1, invite 2 engagement sessions.
I'm sorry.
That's their like one ask.
Got it.
Around Christmas, that would come out.
All right, so you
before.
won't see the questionnaire information until around Christmas time. But you will
Unless you
get a
come to the
postcard unless you come to the engagement session, then you could fill it out there. So if you want to get in early and often, come to the engagement sessions. Otherwise, you have to wait till around Christmas. We know that is holidays, shopping, parties. It's really difficult. So you better do it early. Plan early, plan ahead. That's how you get things done, right?
Here's what kind of questionnaire stuff.
Yeah, if you have those filled out, we'll take them and we'll type the information in to capture your responses. Thank you for that. And I appreciate your patience with that. So.
So I need to fill out the session. All right. Anything else on our workshop?
Nice work, guys.
This is amazing.
If not, thank you very much. We have another item on our agenda this evening. So I'm gonna look for a motion in a second to convene an executive session in accordance with Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent G, to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, specifically to confer with legal counsel regarding strategy related to litigation by a parent concerning the educational services provided by the district to the parent's child.
So
moved. Second.
And second, then Suzette, can we please have a roll?
Yes. Mrs. Lee. Present. Yes. Things. Mrs. Kaiser. Yes. Mr. Burns.
Yes.
Mrs. Carr.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mr. Becker.
Yes.
Ms. Gill. Yes. Mr. Sikich is on Zoom.
All right, we will take a recess now so we can move into closed session.